Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of the X Button, Season 3, Episode 45. I am your host, Alejandro. With me, it's always my boy Wonder that always answers the call when I need him.
What's up, everyone? It's Sebastion. I am so glad to be here today, man. It's always a pleasure to record with you, Alejandro, and always happy to press X to play, and can't wait to talk some video game news with you today.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm glad that you're able to jump in, especially because my podcast co-host Paul, he was having a rough one this week because it's like he's on year-end season for his work, so he was getting swamped. So I was like, I'll put out the bad signal and see if I can give you a little break, especially because we're so close to a real break, which is Thanksgiving for next week, which is crazy that we're already in Thanksgiving in 2023. It feels weird. You excited for Thanksgiving, Sebastian?
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for Thanksgiving. I ironically, normally I'm always like super excited for Black Friday because of the way I like to spend money on video games purposely. Yeah. But this year I'm so stacked with video games throughout the year. Oh my god!
I know.
I'm excited this year.
No, literally. And especially because for me, Black Friday feels weird because in the arrangement that I told you that I have with Paul, where we created an account where we split the prices for games that we both play them. It's like it always feels like Black Friday to me because I always spend less than I usually would. It's not like obviously most games are like $70, but we're not personally paying 70 for that. We're like paying 35. So by the time Black Friday rolls around, it's like the only thing that makes it exciting is if in our split it can go even cheaper. But other than that, I'm like, I feel like I got everything I wanted to play this year, especially because of review purposes. Also, that gave me that gave us a push to be like, yeah, we gotta play this now. And we're making the joke over at Season Gaming. I'm like the one that made the most reviews this year.
I'm not surprised. You probably played the most games too.
Oh yes, yeah, and because we're gonna start doing like we're gonna start early our Game of the Year write-ups, but it's like we're not gonna pick like a side Game of the Year because not everyone played it much. But we're gonna do like personal stuff, and we're gonna do our own personal awards. We're gonna think of wacky titles for awards, and that's kind of how we're gonna list it. So
it's kind of crazy though, because like you would think like in the year that is probably the best year ever in video game releases, that everyone would probably have played a little bit more,
Yeah, it's more like so many people I play like 3 or 4, and I play like 15 games, so I have more of a spread. So that's kind of like that's kind of how it goes. And I know for my editor-in-chief Ains, who I'm still trying to get into the podcast. Sometimes he told me he was just super busy when I was like bringing people in. He hasn't been able to play and finish much because of personal reasons, and also he's a very big Elden Ring stan, so he's like judging everything through Elden Ring. Like, what did this game made me feel last year compared to like the games that come out this year? And at least for him, he hasn't found that one that has hit for him. To me personally, I have found way more stuff this year than I did last year. Last year, I eventually grew to love Elden Ring, but it was like there were not many pickings. It was just that or Ragnarok. If we're talking about like year-end stuff that you had to play, at least in big games, it was just those two. So I feel there's more discussions to be had with this year. But it's so funny because there's going to be now we start the season for awards, and that's basically what we're going to focus on today. Other than, I want to hear a few stuff that you've been playing, but before we dive into that, this is just a reminder that this is the X Button Podcast, or gaming podcast, that posts every Fridays from 2 p.m. onwards, God willing, available on the YouTube channel Escape Gaming, as well as most audio services around the world. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the like. You can find links in the RSS feed at tinyurl.com/escapegaming. If you enjoy our show, give us a like and subscribe. And just a little housekeeping, you can read my recent 4 reviews over at both my website, thecriticalcorner.com, and seasongaming.com. You can read my thoughts on Super Mario Wonder and Spider-Man 2 over at thecriticalcorner.com, and then you can read my thoughts on the campaign for Modern Warfare 3 and my full thoughts on Alan Wake 2 over at seasongaming.com. And recently here with my buddy Sebastion, I guested over at the Single Player Experience to do a very in-depth conversation about Spider-Man 2. Paul and I did our own, but it was short and I still wanted to say more, so I came over to your show. That's supposed to go live next week, as far like from what I know. So also another bit of housekeeping, because next week is going to be Thanksgiving. Because of Paul's situation, we're not going to record a new episode for that week. But when the discussion for Spider-Man 2 goes live over Sebastian's show, that's going to be reposted as that week's content for the X Button. So definitely keep an eye out for that. So
For sure.
Sebastian, because I played so many new games, reviewed so many games, I indulge myself in playing a bunch of old games that I really don't want to spend much time talking about. So for people to know, I've been like Spider-Man 2 left me with such a I want to keep playing more Spider-Man that I just played all the old Spider-Man games from the 2002 movie game from Sam Raimi up until Amazing Spider-Man 2. So basically 12 years worth of Spider-Man games that I just blasted through in a week. So I just have to finish Spider-Man 2 before I can restart the Insomniac trilogy. I'm gonna wait until I finish that to give all my thoughts. But you, Sebastian, you're guesting. I want to hear what have you been playing, especially because you're just recently restarted Final Fantasy 16, as you were
Yeah,
telling me this week. So tell me, how's the early boring hours treating you?
it is, as you so put it, kind of
Yeah.
early and boring. It's
Mm-hmm.
not it's I had this thought the first time around. It's not quite grabbing me.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
it's not like I don't think it's a bad game. I just
Mm-hmm.
don't feel like it's not. Like you read Final Fantasy, you kind of have an expectations of what you expect a Final Fantasy to be.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like Devil May Cry fantasy.
Yeah.
Like a
That's what
little.
it is. That's what the game is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I definitely want to talk about that in rewards specifically with that. But yeah, continue.
So it's not, and here's the thing: it's like I think the cutscenes are amazing. I think like the general premise is really good. I
Mm-hmm.
don't necessarily think like the action is super engaging to me. I'm like, and I also like the world that they're building, like especially like it's not open world.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like open
Oh.
areas that you
Mm-hmm.
can choose from, right? So it's
Yeah.
like none of that feels grandiose. None of that feels like it's super layered and super involved. And some of it feels like is like I see a treasure chest. I get
Mm-hmm.
it, and there's like two gil in it, and I'm
Yeah.
like,
Mm-hmm.
oh man. I'm
Yes.
like, it doesn't feel worth it to go off the beaten path. But all that said, it's like it's a fun time. It almost makes me wish that I could just watch the anime version of
Yeah.
this, you know?
Just the cutscene version of it. Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's so funny you mentioned that, Session, because in this very show, in the time, like knowing where you are in the game, me and Paul went on record saying, we like this, but we don't love this. There's something missing here because it's like pacing's really wonky, especially because it starts so amazing within the first 2 hours with like a bit before the big title card, the big thing. It's
Yeah.
like that energizes you, but then it just pumps the brakes. It like pumps them like really hard, and early on doesn't make a good first impression when it comes to like even side quests because it's like I remember them clearly. One of those early side quests is like, hey, go fetch me some wood. Hey, take this food in this restaurant to these people, or go like fetch me some sand. Those are the kind of like fetchy, like why are we doing this kind of side quest that game starts with, that it
Yeah.
creates such a bad first impression that then I don't blame anyone to be like, this sucks ass. It's like, I'm not gonna keep doing this side quest, I'm just gonna mainline through the story. And that does such a disservice because it presents them so bad early on that eventually they get good. Like they do. Because I'm such a completion, I still like powered through because even in the dullness of some of the side quests, that's where you get a little bit of the world building of the state of the world that sometimes is not touched upon in the main quest. But it's when you get to Sambrique, the northeast side of like there's like a when you're gonna be pursuing something like the big mother crystals, if I remember correctly. That's what it is. Like you're gonna reach that kingdom where that deals a lot with slavery, the slavery, like the people are branded and all that. When those cycles start hitting, you're like, they actually like are really well written. Well, they elicited some like really harsh emotions from me, kind of like I remember telling Paul this, that this had been like a Bioware style RPG where you can like choose like a Paragon or Renegade decision to like what you're seeing. This would be like the time where I would like eschew my moral. I'm usually Paragon, I will go Renegade because the way these people are treating these slaves is like really despicable. That's like one of the
Yeah.
first times those side quests did something to me. It's like, but just story wise, like rewards wise, you will only feel rewarded in those side quests until you find after the final time jump that you'll know it when you get 3 powers. I know you don't have 3 L2, that you press L2 to switch different icon powers. You only have 2 from what I understand, right?
Yeah.
Garuda and Phoenix. So yeah.
Yeah, fire and wind.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. Like 2 points here I want to make, and the first one being like 2 games that I kind of dabbled with earlier in the year, but didn't quite stick around with because of like all the frequency of all these games coming out, not necessarily the quality, but like this Final Fantasy and Diablo both feel like if they both combined efforts, like they would almost like they do. They almost like they almost feel like they each are like the weakness of one is the strength of the other. If that makes sense.
Yeah, you will like the story and the presentational kind of like quality of the cutscenes in Diablo, but you will like the equipment depth and RPG-ness of Diablo. Kind of like I understand. Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
If both of those like magically combined efforts and like magically made this game, I think that'd be the game of the year this year. But like as it stands, like two pieces of the puzzle there, like two separate games that they are, it's like both of them are decent games, and it's just like both of them feel like there's quite something missing. And with like Final Fantasy 16, like I am having fun with the game, but I feel like you in this year that we're in, the year of 2023, one of the greatest years in video game history as far as releases go, like you can't have that lull, man, especially so early on in your game, to where like all the games that are considered like top tier this year just come out of the gate swinging.
Yeah, and this is where I say like this is the weird game where when you see it in its entirety, you understand why you see so many people championing it, because it gets there.
Yeah,
it shouldn't, because it could lose someone early on, but it does get there, especially when it comes to its story. The story gets super good. You've seen already spectacle with some of the boss fights. You've seen nothing. When I tell you, like, me and Paul told you, that Garuda fight, which is like that big, one of the first ones where you fight a big icon monster, that's the worst fight in the game compared to like what's coming. So it's like, eventually Final Fantasy 16 is gonna give you some of the highest highs when like with so many elements coming together, story, spectacle, the score, all of it. But then it's a game brought down by a lot of dual lows. It's like it's a game that has a lot of peaks and a bunch of valleys. Sometimes like those peaks come back to back. There will be an extended valley, and I'll let you know like when you get there. What's gonna be like this stretch where it's gonna feel like it starts dragging, but it's like it has the kind of highs that when you're done with the game and then you look back, those are the highs that stick with you. When you're in the moment, you're like, where am I fetching this? Like, and also because what you're seeing with the combat, especially with its DMC inspirations, gets really good once you unlock more stuff. But all of that stuff is like story related. So it's like you still have not even seen much of the combat that makes it like so cool. Once you unlock more icon abilities, you start mastering stuff, and especially there's an ability that you still don't have that's also story related. That's like one of the coolest moments, at least from the story. It's whenever you get the L3R3 attack. I'm not gonna say more, but it's like if you have seen discourse about the game or people like mentioning iconic things from this game, that's one of them. I'll definitely talk to you about it whenever you get there, whenever that happens. But it's like, sure. It's like it's a game where you're in a rise. Like I remember very vividly when me and Paul started, like we're actually disheartened, like in this early time, like where you are, because we're like we thought after the demo, because remember there's like they demoed the first 2 hours, or like you could play that and then transfer your save over.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah, it's like those first 2 hours, and how like it got the gut punch that you receive right before the title card is like, in a way, it's kind of like the demo. Also, it being like available a week before is such a disservice, because that's the kind of thing that you kind of want that momentum to sustain you afterwards, because then you get this high, you waited a week and a half for the rest of the game come out, and because what comes after it can feel so dull early on, because you're like, man, that was such an exciting beginning. Now this feels very like walking through this linear hallway. Here's like a long cutscene. Here's more. It's like I only have like one style of combo attacks. It's like the combat is like so limited. It feels like there's not much there. Eventually, it gets there, and I've saved some videos of like how insane the combat gets, because like Devil May Cry, and why you were mentioning, yes, like these enemies are so spongy. That's a Devil May Cry feature, because they make sponges because they want people to like combo everything. Because if you have enemies that go down so quickly in a combo-based game, that it's an action-based game, that can get really annoying, because you're like, there's all these cool combos that I can't execute because the enemies don't last. The problem is that when you get the sponginess early on with such limited moves early on, it feels bad early, because you're like, man, it's like I'm wailing and wailing and wailing and wailing and wailing. It's like I don't have much, but you eventually get there. That's kind of like it's a really excellent combat system later on, just not where you are right now. That's why I'm like, just keep pushing. You just keep pushing.
I get that, and you know, I get that. It's just like I think we're in a year where if you have to say just keep pushing, it's like it's kind of to the game's detriment, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things to where I'm like, I look at this, and I also think to myself, I'm like, I get people's complaints about, and it's not, and it's petty complaints. I get it, but like I get people's complaints that this doesn't feel like Final Fantasy, and
Mm-hmm.
as far as like
Because it's
combat,
not.
as far as the
Mm-hmm.
gameplay, it doesn't. But
It
it's
was
like,
promoted like that, and that's the thing. Like
uh
ahead of time, they told you this was not gonna be a traditional Final Fantasy. That was like that was part of the pitch. It's like they were not hiding that fact. They were like, no, we're especially because they did it this way because they were trying to make it more appealing. Because they were like, no, we want to like hit that 4 quadrant things, especially if we're gonna be spending all this money. Like it has to be something that appeals. Like, what's appealing people? It's like, oh yeah, straight action. So that's kind of why they decided to push that way, and of course that created like a big division. This game reviewed really well. It's like in the high 80s. Obviously, there's many games that was like high 90s, and that's kind of like where the nominate. We're gonna talk about it. But that's where the nominations ended up landing, regardless of some thoughts of a specific game that got nominated that was highly rated. That is like, even though it reviewed really high, there was also that conversation between like the longtime fans and all that. Is like, yeah, this isn't Final Fantasy enough. And then there's the people that have always made the point that Final Fantasy is one of those series that evolves a lot. Is like it always changes. It's on the spirit that no entry is similar to. Compare this to 15, is super different. Compare 14 to 15, they're also super different. Compare 13 to what came after. He said it's like a series that always like changes itself. It's just that this is the most radical change. That was also inspired by the fact that the action turn of Final Fantasy VII Remake in 2020 was also super well received. But the thing that I appreciate from Final Fantasy VII Remake is that that's a game that straddled the line. It's like, yes, there's actiony stuff, but if you want to succeed, you have to slow down and do the quote-unquote turn-based attacks. That slows the world down. You pick the attack, and it attacks. It's like it married both way. It married both worlds in a way that it was able to appeal to the old school while still get the people that wanted more action, which was me. I've learned to love turn-based again recently, but that wasn't me. And then 16 was like, what if we skew all that and just go straight action? And that's why like you see that discourse that happened despite the great critical reception it got. It was just that, and a lot of people were like, yeah, it's like, this is great and all, but it's not my Final Fantasy. It's like, I prefer this from Final Fantasy. So, and in the one area where I will agree is like, I feel this is a game that even with its action could have used a little bit more depth when it comes to equipment, when it comes to like, and the RPG is like, there's just going ahead. The fact that this was nominated in Best RPG this year is nonsense over the Game Awards. It's like, travesty. This needed to be in Best Action. Like, don't put it in Best Art. So it's like, we're definitely going to talk about the awards afterwards, but it's like, yeah, this is like, RPG in nature is like a slide RPG as you can get even in games from like Spider-Man and God of War and all that. You know, a lot of people, games that are supposed to be action games all have like RPG light elements. This is kind of like in that same boat. So it's like, but it doesn't belong in an RPG conversation. But that's not like what people like. Why a lot of people champion this game is like so many things outside just the game. You know, it's like the quality of like the acting, the quality of like the overall story. Even when it's gonna get the story gonna get really weird. I tell you, it's gonna like take some really weird esoteric turns like near the end. But it's like the quality of like its interpersonal like exchanges, like the score, the Soken score, the beauty of the graphics, especially in the massive scale. Yeah, because obviously there's some inconsistency in some of the graphics, especially when you're in the side stuff. You see like the facial animations of the like side quest characters are like very. You see a difference between like the main story quest that is like so beautifully animated and those things that seem like were done by lesser people. So it's like there's that inconsistency there, but kind of like when that game hits visually, it's gonna be like beyond what you can imagine like one of these consoles capable of doing and handling before the console can even explode. Is that kind of like spectacle that eventually gets her. But that's the thing that people think about when they champion this game. Don't feel bad, like, but the things that you're feeling is what I felt. Is what I felt in those early 10 hours when me and Paul were talking, because we were actually disappointed because they're like, God damn it, it's like this felt like this could be like the big game. There's like it just has that feel in that demo, but eventually gets there. It's gonna be like this. It's gonna be you understand why it's not in like it didn't like get fully nominated up there, even as people that absolutely love it. I would have loved seeing it just based on the highs, but I don't disagree with the lows. I even noticed those lows in my review. So I reviewed other games higher.
Yeah, I don't know if it, you know, like I don't know if it would make a top 10 list right now in the year that we're in right now. It's because it's like it's so stacked. It's just
Yeah.
it's not bad, and it's not bad at all. It's
based
just
on
like,
based on where you are, I understand why you feel like when you finish it, we can have that conversation. But until all it's done, because it changes. That's the kind of game that the more people see it, the more people get it. But you also have a point. There's other games that came out swinging much quicker.
much quicker. And then I think like what they try with what the genre that they're in and what they tried to do, such as like a Sea of Stars, for instance. Like I feel like Sea of Stars nails its vision way better than what Final Fantasy 16's ultimate vision is. You know, it's like, and I get it. It's tomatoes. We're comparing two different things. It's just like I think like Sea of Stars is a masterclass in that 2.5D genre. You know, like. And this is a really good entry into into this genre that it's trying to be, into this action adventure RPG like RPG, but like it's I don't know if this is going to be like a Hall of Fame class in that genre, you know?
Yeah, it's like not the entire game, elements of it are. That's why I can't wait for you to please promise me you're gonna like. Even if
I'm gonna try to mow through it.
Try blowing through it and talk, because there's like I want to tell you some of like the things that really have like there's no other game whose highs have stuck with me longer than Final Fantasy 16.
I'm really surprised.
Especially the highs,
I'm really surprised because like I thought maybe Alan Wake's highs would be like.
And the thing is that I think Alan Wake 2 is the best game I played this year.
Yeah, is the difference. Like, especially like the TV portion of Alan Wake 2. Like the TV station.
Have you gotten a whiff of one of those chapters that mixes in-game and live actions together? It's the talk of the town. It's called We Sing. So that's all I'll say for people, like, because I don't want to get spoiled, because that's like the best moment, one of the best moments of this year. But also like why I said is like Alan Wake just came out, so that's like just fresh in my mind. 16 came out in June. From there to now, the highs, I still think about them often. The soundtrack, it's always in my workout playlist. It's like there's so many.
Amazing.
The score is amazing. It's like that's the one thing that I'm gonna fight tooth and nail for this year. Is like what deserves the score is that one. So, but it's like Alan Wake 2 is my. It's not my favorite. It's like I can separate what's the best thing I played and what's my favorite thing that I played. And I think Alan Wake is in that. It's kind of like in that boat of kind of like putting my critic head on and be like, what is the best thing that I played that nailed almost all. It was kind of going for it. To me, that was Alan Wake 2. Then, what is the thing that has stuck with me most from this year has been Final Fantasy 16, even though that's not the best game I played this year. I played games that nail other stuff like much better. But that's still, FF16 is still high up there for me, based on those highs. So, can't wait to have that conversation. Yeah, I can't wait for you to move on from the part that me and Paul have said in this podcast. Was like, we don't know, man, but eventually gets there. So whenever you start unlocking more, and then you start seeing more of the spectacle, then we can like talk. And then we can also have that conversation like, why was the game not all this? So
I get that completely. I've been playing a whole lot of things though. I mean, like as the year is ending, I've been trying to, kind of like wrap up some of the things and of that I maybe didn't get to at first, or maybe like actually explore some things that I probably should have given more time, but with the release calendar and all the games and all the review codes and all that kind of stuff, didn't get a chance to absolutely nail as far as like put consistent hours into. So recently I've been playing a lot of Dave the Diver. I think it's fantastic. I do think I know the argument on the internet lately about like it being an indie game or not. I think that's for sure an indie game, by the way.
But it definitely looks like it. It's just that the whole Nexon of it all, that Nexon created that studio. So it's like indie is like being independent, that you can make a game outside of the usual publisher structure, and it being like under a publisher like Nexon muddies it a little bit. But I can imagine the way it plays, the way it like is presented, is definitely from it's like exudes a lot of that independent like energy. That's what
think about it like this though. I'm like, how many people in the mainstream know about this game?
IGN definitely knows. It's one of their highest rated games this year, but
outside of the mainstream, I mean, I'm talking about like if you were to go to like basically average people, do you think they know what Dave the Diver is?
No. Oh no, not this year. Not this year. Full years.
No, I'm like you, and I don't think people know very like what's some other Nexon games.
I know the finals is another one. That's like one of the more standout shooters in a year that has been horrible for shooters. That
Yeah.
recently had a beta with a lot of players. That's another one. So, but it's like next one is like more. It's like in that THQ pocket of like, or even beneath THQs. Like there's publishers, but it's like not what you like associate something. It's not like you would see in front of a box. But it's
Let's
still
be
a publisher.
real.
Yeah.
Like the average Joe's not gonna know what the finals are. I'm like,
Yeah.
at this point, no. Like Nixon's putting out things that most people don't know about, like that the main population is not gonna know about. I'm like, that's almost the damn definition of an indie title, isn't it?
Yeah, it in some that's the thing. Like indie, I hate that indie has gotten so muddled because it used to be so easy. It used to be so easy, and credit to indies being able to push above their weight to be able to like put out games that can confuse people in a way, not thinking that they're independent. Like Larian, just think about that. It's like Larian, it is an indie. Obviously, it wasn't bad. It's like the game they made is like has pushed so above its weight, like in such extreme, in such an extreme way that you tell people, it's like, oh yeah, that's an indie. People are being like, you're crazy, you're absolutely crazy. So yeah, it's like.
So that's the thing. Is like if we don't know what the pure definition of what an indie game is, I'm like, it's closer to what the heart of an indie game is. So I'm like, you know, that's a really good one. Cocoon. I'm about to probably polish off Cocoon. Really good puzzle game.
Yeah, that's one of the ones I have. That's one of the ones I have installed because of Game Pass. So that's another one that I kind of want to plow through.
Play it on a week through. I mean, like you can beat it in like 5 hours. Like 5 hours. Then Persona 5 Tactica has been really good. I think that's
that one just came out recently. Yeah, I think it comes. Yeah, I think it comes out tomorrow on Game Pass if I'm not mistaken. But do you get code for that?
Yeah. So
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, Persona 5 Tactica has been really good. Really fun. It's not necessarily mainline Persona because I think that, like, you know, Persona 5 Royal is still the king of all Persona right now, but like it's really good. I think it's like if you like that style, if you like that Fire Emblem style of games, you'll probably really like this as well.
It basically both games had a baby, and that baby was Tactica.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm like, I think that's a really good one. I also want to shout out Slay the Princess. That's an amazing.
Which, by the way, your review is up over at the Kroner Report, right? Yeah, I saw your tweet, so people go read about this indie game that I know it hasn't gotten a lot of mainstream coverage, but for the people that really like played it, I know that people have been singing the praises of this thing, like singing them. Yeah,
it hasn't gotten a whole lot of mainstream coverage, like you said, but like anyone who's covered it is 9 out of 10 or above. Like it is like
it's in the pocket.
Like, oh yeah, for sure. I think if more outlets would have got their hands on this probably would have been not only Indie of the Year, but like a lot of people have been pushing for it to be in that top 10 slot.
I tell you, a lot of the indies that came out this year, I know that from what I understand, why people don't hold games even though they're complete is because they gotta pay the bills, so they gotta try to put it out to. I'm like, next summer is looking so empty, at least so far, that I'm like, I wish they could have felt more safe of just like, okay, we're just gonna wait until the perfect time to release it, because I do feel bad about the fact that there's been so many indies this year that have just got straight up shafted just because of the sea of AAAs that we got. It's like, it just tells you how hungry a lot of people were for AAA, that an anomaly year like this, which is never going to be repeated again, because this year was the result of so many of the delays from COVID that all just happened to like land this year. Is like, indies didn't stand a chance. It's like they needed like indies definitely can shine in a 2022 like year where it was like AAA was like so barren in comparison, and even what was there in AAA was like disappointing, like Saints Row and Gotham Knights last year. So there's like
things are gonna change too with like the wave of mobile gaming, as far as not phones. I'm talking about like actual like Steam Deck and ROG Ally, the Legion, and everything like that. Like because those games are so friendly to play on the go, like I think there is going to be a just resurgence. Yeah, there's going to be like this big renaissance of like indie love that'll come in the next year and a half, I believe.
Yeah, the Switch proved that, especially because I know before the Steam Deck and all that, like the Switch was the home for indies that PlayStation seeded with the Vita. That was the tragedy of the Vita. Obviously, the Vita failed on its promise of console quality gaming on the go, but at least from like the 2012 to 2016 era of the Vita, so many people found success with indie Vita, at least indie Vita versions of indie games that were also on consoles, but even developers would tell us like, we see the heat mapping, we get more sales, and we see more engagement on the Vita than even on the PS3 and the PS4. So it's like there's just an inherent hominess, I would say, to like a side-scrolling indie style game on like a handheld. And obviously then Sony abandoned the Vita like a bad habit when they got hacked or like unlocked. They were like, yep, we're like washing our hands forever. Then obviously the Switch came out and be like, that's like, it's taking the baton. And now like Steam Deck, that with so much availability of the Steam library that has of those games, is like now people are kind of like getting it now and again, be like, it's like there is a place for these games and it's in these handhelds. And now like the recommitment of Valve for the Steam Deck OLED, that was kind of like what I was waiting on, because that was like me. Remember when you told me that? I was like, yeah, they've sold 3 million in like the first year. I initially was like, that sounds slow for me, just knowing stuff, or just in comparison. But I'm like, I'm glad they proved me wrong. That is like they were happy to double down based on that, because then they understood this is an early entrant. People are gonna wait and see, and be like, okay, are you committing to this? And the more you see that when people announce games, often enough you see that Steam Deck compatible. So it's like now you notice like that's like slowly like when that happened for Final Fantasy VII Remake last year when they at the Square Enix showcase. That was my first inkling of like, okay, this is gaining traction, because I remember when the Steam Deck launched, it launched a week before Elden Ring. I was like, did they send this thing to die? That was my thought back in February 2022. Because I was like, why do you release this new system in the middle of like the only period in 2022 where there were so many games launching? That was like the week of Sifu, Horizon, Destiny 2, Witch Queen, Elden Ring, all like back to back. I was like, it gave us a taste that month of like what 2023 was. And that's when they launched the Steam Deck, and I was so worried. I was like, oh man, Bob, why did you do that? It's like, that sounds so cool. It's like, who's gonna talk about this? And then the compatible in Steam Deck, okay, then the sales, and then you have been selling me a lot in between shows that you always like, and I tell you, I already told you, it's like, there's only a Steam Deck at my Radio Shack that's 5 minutes away from me. It's like $1,100. It's like, that machine looks cool. It's not worth $1,100 for me.
For sure.
But now with the OLED, and now them discounting the old version until like they release stock, is like, that's a good entry point, because it's like similar to like a Switch and has the vast library of the Steam in comparison to like the limited Nintendo library of its exclusives and indies. So
yeah, and I mean, to add on to that, it's like for a first generation console, I'm like 3 million at like that's a lot of unit, a lot of money, a lot of units and such like that. And then you double down on it with the OLED.
And good for not a greedy company. That at least showed me that at least Valve understood, because like 3 million for any others, that would have been like, yeah, we're washing our hands from this. Think about it. The Vita sold like 10 million within its first year, and that was considered a failure. I mean, come on. So again, it's like expectation. I applaud Valve that they calibrated their expectations so well, because like they rather market penetrate slowly by establishing and giving the confidence that this is a viable product, and good that it's viable now that Nintendo's about to move on finally next year, as far as we know.
Oh, yeah.
So
and the Switch 2 is gonna sell gangbusters. It's just it's like the Switch 2 though, now like it has to be a powerhouse. It has to be the little engine that could, because the competition is not going to allow them to sit on their laurels.
Oh no, not at all. Especially now that you're moving on, now the power conversation and now does matter, because like, okay, Switch is like, we gave you a pass of you releasing in 2017 with your hardware and still like trucking along despite like so many hardware competitors leaping forward, and it's like, yeah, you're on your lane, but it's like now you're updating. It's like, what do you got? Obviously we've heard the DLSS thing, that it's supposed to like give high quality with trickery. That's what a lot of PC gamers do.
For sure.
And it's like, hey, if they can get at least smart with how they can like portray power in a way and still keep it like cheap, that could be like an interesting proposition compared to like the Steam Deck, whose high-end model is like in the $500 to $600 pocket, but they still found success through that. And at least they also have a very low-end model that at least gets you in there, and then you have the high-end model that's more for like the enthusiasts. They're hitting both markets. So
I think the Switch needs to do that. I honestly do. Like, I think there needs to be a high end Switch and then a low end Switch on the Switch too. Because I'm like, I'm looking at what is rumored now with like no OLED at launch.
Yeah, that's gonna be rough in comparison. Now that you got a competitor with an OLED, and even funnier. We were talking with Paul last week because the financials came in that the Nintendo Switch has sold 132 million units already, which is nuts. The OLED, the more expensive one, is the one that's selling the most out of the three. Because remember, they have three. They have the OLED, the normal Switch that I still have, and the Lite. I would have thought the Lite would be the best-selling one on the $199 price alone. Because that just dictates logic, but it just goes to show that the appeal of an OLED screen enabled them to, still with the weak-ass hardware, because it's still the same innards from 2017, only like an OLED screen, that convinced a lot of people, and they were selling more of that at a $50 markup. It's like, why don't you just double down on the OLED immediately? It's like, you got it there. So unless you're planning to do like we're starting with the LCD and then we're gonna double dip later, which is classic Nintendo. They've always done that. So, but it's like, they're unstoppable. 132 million. It's like nuts. And it's like, it's just crazy how popular the machine goes. And kind of like we were talking with Paul, is like, us that we're an enthusiast that really care about power, because it's like we see what power can do. It's like, how much that doesn't matter. Like, it's insane because it's like people don't care about that, and they just crack the code. But I'm glad that now we know that there's a market for handhelds, and Steam Deck is like slowly doing that. ROG Ally coming in. It's like, I'm just glad that now there's a home for that. Especially since Xbox and PlayStation decided to cede that entire market. To their detriment, I would say. Because they could have also hit that. So,
hey, Xbox is like, hey, all these things are coming out, and we can put Game Pass on every single
exactly.
one.
It's like Xbox at least is in the good, their commitment to PC, it's good. Because it's like, at the very least, they're able to cheat the system a little bit, because a lot of these systems use that. So they're like, because we're such a software-heavy company, we can like get halfway there. We're not committing to the hardware, but we're gonna make them kind of like sponsored devices, and that can work. It's like at least better than like what Sony is doing, that the only thing that they're committing is the Portal that came out today, I think. Yeah, today came out. Yeah, and I've heard it's good and mixed. Yeah,
I was about to say, I was gonna tell you, really good, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, and that's the thing, more on the good side than the mixed side. It's like the mixed side is like what I was expecting, but it's like I heard more positive about it than I did mixed. That I feel that's a good ratio. It could have been the other way, more mixed than good, and that would have been like concerning. But it seems that at least they got something there. But that's like the only commitment, considering they used to do the PSP.
This is I have a bold prediction that the PlayStation Portable is going to, or this version Portal is going to sell more than the VR 1 and 2.
Oh, absolutely! Just the price alone. just the price alone. Yeah. 2. Yeah. Especially like with the demos that people are showing, that it actually works for more like it at least gets to the backbone that people are always say was surprisingly good. So it's like it needed to be that in like a bigger screen. And I know Paul that he was not gonna get it. He saw one of the impressions, and he even posted like some of the impressions to like the group chat I had with him. He was like, "Man, it's like at $199 for this, and being able to like play it and like have it here while my wife watches the Netflix and all that. It's like sounding really appealing." I'm like, I agree. I have 100% agree with that. It's like, I'll see it because I'm going to Dallas or later, late December. I'm going to see if those are available, because $200 for that, I like that. Like I feel that there's some use to it. So
yeah.
So before we move on, so anything else that you play other than some indies?
Yeah, like a couple of things, but it's redacted, so I'm like, I'll talk about it next time we're on.
All right, I'm not gonna make you break embargo. So Sebastion, instead of news this week, is like it's basically now we're in award season now, and we already got the first major batch of awards, which is the Golden Joystick Awards. That's the 41st edition that happened, and kind of like what's important about what's notable about the Golden Joystick Awards is that no critics vote on this. This is the first award that is just fan driven. So the fans, like they submit their votes, and then they award for that. It's different to the Game Awards. That is like the panelists are like 120 person committee that's not really a committee. It's just basically they gave a ballot to like different houses. You can check who are the ones that voting, and they're the ones that put out the game. So it's kind of different. I kind of want to go over like the winners of the Golden Joystick Awards, because that at the very least gives us an idea of like where things are tilting. So here are the Golden Joystick Award winners of 2023. So
okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so the best storytelling, Baldur's Gate 3. The Still Playing Award, No Man's Sky. Best Visual Design, Baldur's Gate 3. Studio of the Year, Larian Studios. Best Game Expansion, Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty. Okay. Best Indie Game, Sea of Stars. Best VR Game, Horizon Call of the Mountain. Best Multiplayer Game, Mortal Kombat 1. I have questions there. Best Audio, Final Fantasy 16. I agree with that. Best Game Trailer, Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty. Absolutely.
Yeah,
yes. Best Streaming Game, Valorant. Makes sense for like esports stuff. Best Game Community, Baldur's Gate 3. Yes, indeed. Best community, best, and also best insufferable community, Baldur's Gate 3. I tell you. Best Gaming Hardware, PSVR 2, which it's one of the only things that came out by the 10 people voted for this. Breakthrough Award, Cocoon by Geometric Interactive. Critics' Choice Award. I think this is the only one where critics kind of like they do put their vote. That's the only one that they can vote. So Critics' Choice Award, Alan Wake 2. Okay. Best lead performer, Ben Starr, Final Fantasy 16. I tell you, Sebastion, you have seen nothing of Ben Starr's performance. Or if you like his performance now, wait for like what comes later. It's like he carries that game with aplomb later on. Best supporting performer. This makes sense just on the intro video that I watched of this game alone. Neil Newbon Astarion from Baldur's Gate 3.
So good.
Yeah. Nintendo Game of the Year, no surprise, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. PC Game of the Year, Baldur's Gate 3. No surprise there. Xbox Game of the Year. Yeah.
There's only two in it. Three.
Yeah, I would have put another one, but yeah, Starfield. PlayStation Game of the Year, Resident Evil 4. I'm gonna talk about that just because there's like a breakdown later on in this list. Most Wanted Game, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Makes sense. There's nothing announced. There's not much big announced, and that's coming soon in February. And Ultimate Game of the Year, Baldur's Gate 3. So the PlayStation Game of the Year one, it's interesting because just if I give you the link, right? You can see like the link, and you can scroll the way down. For PlayStation Game of the Year, Spider-Man was not nominated there. It was FF16, Resident Evil 4, Street Fighter 6, Humanity, Armored Core 6, and Jedi Survivor. But Spider-Man was an Ultimate Game of the Year. Why was not there? That was weird. Like,
is that a cutoff thing? Maybe I have no idea.
I think it was probably a cutoff because I'm looking at it like a bunch of these games were already done. Yeah. Like, was Mario there? Let's see. No, Mario's not there.
Yeah, so I think it's a cutoff thing.
Yeah, so it was a cutoff. Yeah, so I think this is like early August because I remember both Mario and Spider-Man were like the same day. So that makes it.
I was gonna mention this a little like after you were done reading, but I do think like to the detriment of this award show, it's like it feels a little early. If I'm being honest, like. I get it.
I 100% agree because that's also my problem with Game Awards because they also have a very nebulous cutoff point that people really called out. And it's also really weird because then if you go to the Ultimate Game of the Year, Mario's there too. So it's like, it was that kind of like a later ballot and then the other ones had to get in. It's weird that Mario and Spider-Man were not there because I would say like at least just from PlayStation alone, even though my personal favorite game from like exclusive for PlayStation is Final Fantasy 16, I would say Spider-Man feels like more for a game on PlayStation that feels more the pocket for that award. That's like the only one where RE4 winning, it's interesting, and we're definitely gonna talk more about that. But it's interesting seeing this because, again, this is very fan-driven, and other than just the Critics' Choice Award, it kind of gives you an idea. This is like the first taste of what Game of the Year is gonna be at, or what could be the winner. So. Now we move over. Now we move over to the Game Awards nominees, Sebastion, because that came out this Monday, and we're opening the IGN list. That thankfully they were able to compile everything for us. So, the story by Ryan Dinsdale. Nominees for the Game Awards 2023 have been revealed, with Alan Wake 2 and Baldur's Gate 3 leading the way with 8 nominations each. Alan Wake's nominations include Game of the Year, Best Game Direction, Best Narrative, Best Art Direction, Best Score and Music, Best Sound Design, Best Performance from Melody Delivered, and Best Action Adventure Game. Baldur's Gate 3 saw a number of similar nominations, including Game of the Year, Best Game Direction, Best Narrative, Best Score and Music, Best Performance from Neil Newbon, Best Community Support, Best RPG, and Best Multiplayer. Marvel Spider-Man 2 received 7 nominations. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom received 5 alongside Super Mario Bros. Wonder. And also have to put out that Hi-Fi Rush also got 5. They forgot to write that. Starfield received 1. A pithy one, I would say. So yeah, it's like let's go over like the before we talk about this award, let's just go over like the games that were like, nominated in each pocket. So obviously with Game of the Year, we talk about Alan Wake 2 and Baldur's Gate 2. The other ones that were in that overall title.
You don't want to save Game of the Year for last?
They put it for
build up to it.
Okay, all right. We're gonna leave Best Game Direction and Game of the Year because they put it the first in this list here. Well, let's start from the bottom. Well, let's see if we can start from the very bottom and go and work.
I was like, give them something to look forward to. Give the people what they want, man.
Yeah, they already got 2. So okay, we're gonna go from bottom to up for this website. So.
Okay.
Best adaptation celebrating game-inspired projects across entertainment, including TV, movies, comics, and more. So the nominees are Castlevania Nocturne, Gran Turismo, The Last of Us, the Super Mario Bros. Movie, and Twisted Metal. Most anticipated game, recognizing an announced game that has demonstrably illustrated potential to push the gaming medium forward. The list includes Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Hades 2, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, Star Wars Outlaws, and Tekken 8.
Are we not doing predictions?
Well, let's read them first, and then we're gonna because I want to read them all first because then we can go. Oh, okay, all right. So best esports team, recognizing a specific esports team, not the full organization, judged the most astounding for performance and conduct in 2021. Okay, why 2021? Probably Evil Geniuses, Fnatic, Gaiman, JD Gaming, and Team Vitality. There's something that I definitely want to talk about these awards because this is something that we found out. It kind of tells you a little bit of some of the people that vote here that don't understand things. So, best esports game for the game that has delivered the best overall esports experience to players, inclusive of tournaments, community support, and content updates, irrespective of genre and platform, includes Counter-Strike 2, Dota 2, League of Legends, PUBG Mobile, and Valorant.
I feel best like the same ones from every year.
Like all the time. Yeah, best esports event recognizing an event across single or multiple days that delivered the best of class experience for participants and the broadcast audience. That's 2023 League of Legends World Championship, Blast.tv Paris Major 2023, EVO 2023, the International Dota 2 Championships 2023, and Valorant Champions 2023. Read this next one. I need to drink water.
Hold on 1 second. My computer pulled it down. Let me see. All right, so give me 1 second. All right, everyone, these are kind of crazy, by the way, because like absolutely kind of crazy. You just read, if I'm not mistaken,
esports event. Yeah, now it's esports coach.
Let's be honest here. We got esports. Why are these at the Game Awards? But okay, best esports coach. The esports coach judged to be the most outstanding for performance and conduct in 2021. We got Christine Chai. We got Danny Sorian. We have Jordan Graham. Remy. I'm gonna say Q. Quantum. Yeah. Shout out to you, Remy. Yoon Song Young. I love that name. Then best esports athlete, the esports athlete judged to be the most outstanding for performance and conduct in 2021, irrespective of game. Why is 2021?
It has to be like a mistype of this website. There's no way that we're judging people from like 2 years ago. It would be weird. Let's say 2023, just to be like more fair.
Mateo Habat, Max Mazanov, Paco. I'm gonna say Paco.
Yeah, or Paco.
Paco. Okay. Paco.
Rusewitz.
Park J Hayuk. Philip Dolson.
Yeah.
And then content creator of the year. for for streamer or content creator who has made an impact or important and positive impact on the community in 2023. We have Iron Mouse, People Make Games, Quackity, Spreen, and Cypher PK.
By the way, have you heard of any of those 5? I have never heard
of none of these names that I've just mentioned. From content creator, esports athlete, esports coach, esports event. Haven't heard jack squat of anything.
Yeah, and something I definitely want to talk about the Game Awards when we're done with all of this. Best multiplayer game. For outstanding online multiplayer gameplay and design, including co-op and massively multiplayer experiences, irrespective of game genre or platform. Nominees are Baldur's Gate 3, Diablo 4, Party Animals, Street Fighter 6, and Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Best sim and strategy game. Best game focused on real-time or turn-based simulation or strategy gameplay, irrespective of platform. Advanced Wars 1 plus 2 Reboot Camp, Cities Skylines 2, Company of Heroes 3, Fire Emblem Engage, and Pikmin 4. Best sports racing game. For the best traditional and non-traditional sports and racing game, EA Sports Football Club 24, F1 23, Forza Motorsport, Hot Wheels Unleashed 2 Turbocharged, and The Crew Motorfest. Best family game. For the best game appropriate for family play, irrespective of genre or platform. So this includes Disney Illusion Island, Party Animals, Pikmin 4, Sonic Superstars, and Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Best fighting game. For the best game designed primarily around head-to-head combat. This includes God of Rock, Mortal Kombat 1, Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2, Pocket Bravery, and Street Fighter 6. Best RPG. For the best game designed with rich player customization and progression, including massively multiplayer experiences. Here are the nominees. Baldur's Gate 3, Final Fantasy 16, Lies of P, Sea of Stars, Starfield. Best action adventure game. For the best action adventure game combining combat with traversal and puzzle solving. This includes Alan Wake 2, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Resident Evil 4, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Best action game. For the best game in the action genre focused primarily on combat. It's almost like one from the RPG side should have been here. So, this includes Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon, Dead Island 2, Ghost Runner 2, Hi-Fi Rush, and Remnant 2. Innovation and accessibility. Recognizing software and or hardware that is pushing the medium forward by adding features, technology, and content to help games be played and enjoyed by an even wider audience. This includes Diablo 4, Forza Motorsport, Hi-Fi Rush, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Mortal Kombat 1, and Street Fighter 6.
Oh.
Read the next one.
All right, the next one, VR game. The best VR game we have for the best game experience playable in virtual or augmented reality, irrespective of platform. We have Gran Turismo 7, Humanity, Horizon Call of the Mountain, Resident Evil Village, and Synapse.
And best community support.
In best community support, we have recognizing a game for outstanding community support, transparency, responsiveness, inclusive of social media activity, and game update / patches. We have Baldur's Gate 3, Cyberpunk 2077, Phantom Liberty, Destiny 2, Final Fantasy 16.
14. It's 14. They missed it. They mistype. Okay. Yeah, it's 14. They put 16 there. Yeah.
Okay, 14, and then No Man's Sky. Mobile game, the best mobile game for the best game playable on a mobile device. Final Fantasy 7 Ever Crisis, Honkai Star Rail, Hello Kitty Island Adventure. I'm going for that one. A Monster Hunter Now, and Terra Neil. Best debut indie game. For the best debut game created by independent studio, Cocoon, Dredge, Pizza Tower, Vimba, and Viewfinder. Best indie game. For outstanding creative and technical achievements in a game made outside of the traditional publisher system, Cocoon, Dave the Diver, Dredge, Sea of Stars, Viewfinder.
This is the one that's created so much controversy, buddy. We'll move on.
And then best ongoing game awarded to a game for outstanding development of ongoing content that evolves the player experience over time. Apex Legends, Cyberpunk 2077, Final Fantasy 14, Fortnite. Well, that indie game, and then
Genshin
Genshin Impact. Yeah, Genshin Impact, and then games for Impact include the thought-provoking game with a pro-social meaning or message, a space for the unbound, Chance of Sonar, which I hear great things about, by the way. Goodbye Volcano High, Chachia, and then Taraya Neal, and then Vimba.
Yeah.
So I think that's a strong list, by the way. Yeah. And then let's see.
Best performance.
Best performance. Awarded to an individual for voice acting, motion, or performance capture. Ben Starr for Final Fantasy 16. Cameron Monaghan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember him. What was the character he played?
Cal Kestis.
Cal Kestis, thank you. Star Wars Jedi Survivor, Idris Elba, Cyberpunk 2077, Phantom Liberty, Melanie Laborde from Alan Wake 2. She was
she's Saga Anderson, the main chick that you play.
Yeah. Neil Newborn, Baldur's Gate 3, Yuri Lowenthal, Marvel Spider-Man 2. And then best audio design, recognizing the best in-game audio and sound design. Alan Wake 2, Dead Space Remake, Hi-Fi Rush, Marvel Spider-Man 2, and Resident Evil 4 Remake. Damn, there's a lot of categories.
Yes, I can take analysis if you want.
Oh, go ahead, but I didn't realize it was this many.
Yeah, it's a lot of them. It's just like when you watch that video on Monday, it's like it just goes so quick when you realize there's so many of them. To its detriment, I would say, and definitely want to get into that. Best score in music for outstanding music, inclusive of score, original song, or licensed soundtrack. So this includes Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Final Fantasy 16, Hi-Fi Rush, The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. Best art direction for outstanding creative and or technical achievement in artistic design and animation. This includes Alan Wake 2, Hi-Fi Rush, Lies of P, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. Best narrative for outstanding storytelling and narrative development in a game. This includes Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty, Final Fantasy 16, and Marvel Spider-Man 2. And the last two, Best Game Direction awarded for outstanding creative vision and innovation in game direction and design. This includes Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom, and then the big bag. That created much concern.
Of the year.
Do you remember the IGN Uncharted 2 Game of the Year video? That was like a rap, and they had the Game of the Year, Game of the Year, Game of the Year. It was like that did for Uncharted 2. I'll never forget that. So, Game of the Year, recognizing a game that delivers the absolute best experience across all creative and technical fields. This includes Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Resident Evil 4 Remake, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. So that is the nominees for Game of the Year at this year's Game Awards. And I tell you, Zika, this has been the Game Awards that, in a way, has kind of exposed the strengths and weaknesses of having like one big event that people like to elevate as kind of like the be-all end-all, even though it shouldn't, because it's like it should be more important to understand more individual taste other than just kind of like a collective, because you can never get like a real collective, especially the people that vote in. I have heard from many, especially from the podcasts that I've been listening, that have friends that are in this thing. Do you know that people give a rat's ass of what they put in? Like the outlets that they're given, they don't think twice about the things that they put in. And I think this is one of the years where that can start like making sense, because people like nominate things that don't make sense in specific categories. So like we mentioned with Best RPG, Final Fantasy 16 does not deserve to be in that category.
I think that's every year though, right? Because Sifu was best fighting game last year. Though.
Yeah. Every year has been more like, okay, it's like, are you not really caring about like what you're nominating? And this has been the year where it boiled over, because obviously you have an example like FF16 being in Best RPG, even though it should be in Best Action Game. For the best game in the action genre, focused primarily on combat. What do you do in that game other than walking and talking to the NPCs? It's action. It's a Devil May Cry game. It needed to be there. It shouldn't have been here in RPG. Why also do we have to like keep doing content, like not just like esports thing or like esports coach and all that? Do you know that there's an esports coach that didn't even coach this year and he even got nominated? It's like
That's crazy.
yeah, it's like I feel like I understand like because Keighley, like what Jeff Keighley never wants to do is he doesn't want the Game Awards to feel like he's the one that makes the categories. So that's why he decided to try to grab many sites and made me YouTubers and all that to kind of be like, no, you guys pick it because I kind of want to keep unbiased. And he did that because of the Death Stranding of it all. Because it's like everyone was like, everyone knows that he and Kojima are like this. It's like it's not as a
when to be objective.
Yeah, he kind of wants to be objective, but I feel like you have to take a little bit more care and instead of just putting this out. I remember I was kind of hearing this from like some of the podcasts that I was listening, that it's like something people may not like this from like the Oscars and all that, but it's like the Oscar has a specific panel that is like an expert in specific things. It would be better for like an actual panel to be the one that, not outlets, like just that panel to be the one at least can look at more, even though this is art, have a little bit more of an understanding of like what you're nominating instead of trying to give so many sites that I know, like for example, I know Kind of Funny. I know for a fact that because they're giving all of this, like all of these categories, they're giving to everyone. It's like, and everyone's like, yeah, just throw in names. It's clear a lot of games that are thrown in, it's like they just kind of see because it's not under expertise, and that's how you get into that kind of nomination. And
can I interrupt real quick?
Yeah, go.
I think and I'm sorry for the interruption, by the way, but no, I think what you're saying is right on the money. I do think there needs to be sort of like a council, but here's what I propose. First and foremost, get rid of the esports category. Give, just like in sports, everybody else has their own award show. Like the NFL has their award show. They do have a collective one called the ESPYs as well, but like,
yes, which is about the esports, right? It's just an esport. It's just an esport award show. It's like, yeah, leave it there. They are the experts in that field. Leave that in the pocket. Don't try to like mix that pocket here for people that don't understand. Sure. Yeah, because like I read so many of those names, and I'm like, how am I supposed to like know like what they even did? It's just like Keighley likes to be all things, but by being a jack of all trades, you become a master of none, and that's kind of my problem. Exactly. I'm so happy that I always said that about Cheesecake Factory all the time. I always said that is so funny.
And the Cheesecake Factory, I get it.
And also,
go ahead.
Yeah, and then also because it creates kind of like inconsistencies in regards to what it's nominated or what makes it or what's not. Like, there's something that it's really interesting. I know we made the joke, like you put the joke that this is like the 10th year in a row where Xbox doesn't have like a big game of the year. They had nominations somewhere else. It's just not like in the big one. They didn't get like the big one before this. And this is something that I did not to pose. Like, Metacritic score hasn't really been what has mattered. Like that puts it in here, because it's like for example, Death Stranding. That was an 82 back then. Like from like critic reviews and all that. Gears of War 5 reviewed higher than Death Stranding too. But Death Stranding. But Death Stranding is the one that got nominated. 2021.
I would probably put Gears of War over Death Stranding personally.
Yeah, especially exactly. So it's like, especially we're using kind of like at least knowing that a lot of these panelists are like from these sites that would review games, but even though we know that apparently the panelists from like those sites has to be like an objective thing, that it's not like part of the pool. It's just someone that has to send in the nominations. And many people have said that they only send nominations. They don't think about the nominations that they send because they care more about their personal game of the year stuff. And they do that to help Jeff, because Jeff is putting this big massive event that everyone can go have fun with and not really think twice about it. But it's like, especially when everyone was like, yeah, should we have an Oscars like equivalent to the to gaming? And some people can say that, yeah, we kind of do that to legitimize, but I'm like, yes, but if we want to have that, we have to take a little bit more care. And I don't want to keep hearing that the people that send in nominations don't think twice about like why they send, because it's like sometimes it doesn't feel like it fully represents. Like when I see the game of the year list, at least those 6, to me it doesn't feel representative of the variety of games that came out this year. To me personally, when I see that, even though I loved a bunch of those games, and one of the best game that I played this year is in that list, when I look at it, it's like, at least to me, how it looked like, it feels like this year they chickened out, and this is the one year where they're like, there's so many great games this year. Let's use Metacritic this time, because all 6 of this game are like top Metacritic. Even Alan Wake 2, it's so funny because the only one that if you look at the PS5 version that got a bunch of the reviews is at an 87, but the Xbox version is at a 94. So in all technicalities, like all the games that were like 90 and above are the ones that got up here. Even though for me personally, when I look at that list, like I love Resident Evil 4 Remake. I'm a high proponent of that game. Is really great. Phenomenal remake of a game that really didn't need to be remade personally because it's still mostly held up in what it was trying to do. I don't see why that is there. Only that it has a 93. Is the only thing that to me it was like they picked all the ones that are 90 and above and are like popular picks. Oh yeah, Resident Evil 4, a game that only got like 2 nominations everywhere else. Yeah, let's put it there. And it's a 93.
Hold on for a second, because I don't think that's the only travesty. Let's go through the list for, and say like, can let's do an exercise, if you will.
Yeah.
So the categories
I have 2 games in Game of the Year that I would remove, and I wanted you to guess what's the other one that I would remove personally.
Oh yeah, for sure. The categories we care about, so to speak. Let's give a guess on what we think is going to win and what we would like to win.
Yeah. And if we were remove something.
Oh yeah, and then what would we replace it with if we were going to remove something?
Awesome.
I think that's a good challenge.
Yeah, let's just start like at the bottom like we started. So like with best adaptation, with those 5 that are there: Castlevania Nocturne, Gran Turismo, Last of Us, Mario Bros. Movie, and Twisted Metal. Is there any way that The Last of Us doesn't win this?
Oh, I want The Last of Us to win, by the way.
Exactly. Is there, it's like this is it has 23 Emmy nominations over on TV. It's like there is no way anything else wins in that category. I feel that's like an easy one. I would say Last of Us wins this.
I think so too. I think Mario is like the dark horse, so to speak, that I could see winning. But like
I feel like Last of Us feels like more like a more defined prestigious element of that category that I'm like, that would be the one that wins, even though the Mario movie was so successful. 1.3 billion in the box office.
Oh yeah,
it did more than any Marvel movie this year. Poor Captain Marvel, poor the Marvels this last weekend that it got destroyed at the box office.
Actually saw it, by the way. Saw it yesterday.
I have heard that it's better than the reviews make it seem, and what's so funny is that the MCU is in that DCU pocket now. Hey,
we'll talk about that later though.
Yeah. It's better, more like isn't that DCEU pocket of like don't listen to the reviews, it's better than what they say. But it's so funny that eventually they got there. But yeah, we can talk about the Marvels later. So
that's a whole podcast in itself.
Yes. So
our most anticipated game.
Yeah, I would say there's 2 here where it can go. Hades was like a big popular, like it was big one back when during Game of the Year in 2020. In fact, like even though The Last of Us Part 2 was like the winner that year, do you know that the individual outlets like that Game of the Year awards actually were more to Hades that year than Last of Us Part 2? So Hades 2 could be the one that wins here, but it's depending on who, it's Final Fantasy 7 Remake because it has a date. It's like 2 months away after like this thing, so it's like immediacy of release helps a lot with this thing. So it has to be. Like, I would say Final Fantasy VII Rebirth could be the one that wins this on its immediacy. Even though there's like 3 games here that are like immediate. Like a Dragon, Rebirth, and Tekken 8. Those are out within the first 2 months, which is kind of... This Outlaws is supposed to be next year. We just have to hear from a release date. I don't know if it's going to solidify, but they said that it's next year. Yeah, so Hades 2 is like the only one that's kind of like a unicorn game. That's like, we know it exists. It will release sometime. So... And Hades just has the critic. Critics love Hades. I love Hades.
I do too. One of my favorite games of all time.
Yes. So I would say it's like likely. I think Hades 2 could win it if critics are the one that also emphasizes. But if this is a fan vote, I think it's Rebirth. I absolutely.
I think with a bullet.
Yeah.
And with the bullet, I would. My most anticipated game for next year.
And it's like a dragon.
Like a dragon. Yeah. But like. I know. But I think it's Final Fantasy with a bullet. I think Hades is probably the one I'm looking forward to as far as quality goes. But yeah, the most Sebastion game is going to be
exactly. And then Rebirth is to me like, especially after my renaissance of Final Fantasy, is like Rebirth is for me, and I'm glad that I'm getting it early. I would say this is so funny. In other years when we see this category, it's always far off games. The fact that 3 of these games are like so close. shows us that I'm hoping, at least in the Game Awards, the things that I care about the most about the Game Awards is that it's a mini E3. I hope we get announcements. I hope we get release days. Like, it's looking dire. Like in really, like after this year is like looking like we're seeing a desert outside in front of us. we gotta,
I don't know,
we gotta.
Xbox got like 4 things, don't they?
They're the only ones. Like to their credit, to their benefit, are the only ones that at least have promised us stuff for next year. No one else has. So it's like it's looking like a desert. We gotta hear more.
2, right? 2 big ones.
Confirmed. Confirmed. Yeah, this is one of them.
Xbox is like 4, and then Nintendo has like 3 or 4, don't they?
Yeah, like one of those was like the Paper Mario Thousand Year Door remake, the Princess Peach game, the Luigi's Mansion 2, and that Vanillaware RPG that's on March. I forget the name. But
gotcha.
It was like it was at their last Nintendo Direct. But other than that, it's like it does feel like 2024 doesn't feel as defined as by this time last year. We knew what 2023 looked like. And thankfully it all hit. Yeah, exactly. So it's like now in comparison, it's like now we got to start hearing more because it feels like we have the first 2 months packed and then everything else is like a desert. It's like it's smelling like 2022 in a way. So we got to hear stuff. And the most anticipated list kind of like paints that because not many have really defined when things are coming out. So and Hades 2 is the only one undefined here, but it's because of the strength of Hades 1. It's in that list. So
it's early access as well.
Exactly. And here's what's so funny. What if the early access drops this December? Ooh. That happened. Yeah, that happened the first one. So that had already happened before. So then best esports team, I would say let's not even dare like vote on like anything esports. It's just not my pocket. So we're gonna skip esports team, esports game,
skip
esports
all
event,
the way up
all
to
the way
that's
to
multiplayer, right?
Yeah, because the content creator, I don't even know who those 5 content creators even are. So
same here.
Yeah, so for best multiplayer game, this is interesting because this 5 games couldn't be more different when it comes to like multiplayer. Obviously, Baldur's Gate 3 has like its interesting. It's basically a co-op game, like.
For a lot of people it was.
Yeah, Diablo 4 always have been in like an online co-op kind of like MMO style looter, so that we know what that is. Party Animals is an interesting one because I know that's kind of like in that Fall Guys pocket in a way. Because it's family friendly. Obviously, it was on Game Pass, so it kind of looks cool. Street Fighter 6, obviously, and Street Fighter 6 is like a solid multiplayer online fighting game. In fact, like that's kind of like what gives it life. The fact that over the joysticks, Mortal Kombat 1 was like okay, interesting.
That single player is horrible though.
Yeah, I hate
Street Fighter.
Yeah, to me personally, I would say Mortal Kombat 1. Would be what I lean on more because of single player stuff and exactly. no one does story modes like Mortal Kombat. It's just that everything else about Mortal Kombat 1, the multiplayer, the microtransactions, and all that are kind of egregious and the netcode's kind of bad. So in multiplayer game, I see why Street Fighter 6 would be here based on just if they want to throw a bone to like the fighting community. The Mario Bros. Wonder multiplayer, it's like this is interesting because I bet this is here because of the ghost thing. That's basically like they made Dark Souls Mario, where you're like running around and there's like the little ghost that to me shockingly was like one of the most stable multiplayer online experiences of Nintendo ever. Because usually when I think of Nintendo multiplayer online, it's just laggy messes. So it was like I played most of that game with that 8 and I was like, I'm shocked that this worked. This is kind of ingenious for what it does for uninterrupted play as you're playing with others without them interrupting. It's a cool gimmick, but I don't see it winning. Like, it's just an interesting way for them to do multiplayer. I would say, for multiplayer, this probably goes to Diablo. To me, like what I think about that.
I'm thinking BG3 or to give a bone to Party Animals.
Okay.
Because I think this one could go all sorts of different ways because
because they're also different. It's like only even Baldur's Gate 3 and Diablo 4 are probably the ones with the closest crossover. Like from like those two. And I know how, like, again, because now that I've learned that so many people really don't care about how they vote sometimes, from what I've heard, I can see this being let's give it to Diablo because he's not gonna win it somewhere else. Kind of like they usually vote that way instead of really thinking. So I think Diablo 4 could get it that way because it wasn't in anything else from what I remember when we go up there.
I don't know if people love Diablo like that though, to where they're like, it's not gonna win for anything else. It's like I think there's pockets of people who really love Diablo, but like I don't think the
Diablo,
industry.
here's the thing. The industry did love Diablo in the review period, at the launch period. They lost a lot of people with season 1. They recovered a lot in season 2 this last month. It has the typical live service.
Did you go back to it?
Yeah, I went back to season 2. I dropped the season 1. So they increase the quality of life. Now it's like the inventory is a little cleaner. It's like you don't have to share with like gems and all that. XP gains are much quicker. So it's like they've been responding to it. So it's like right now Diablo 4 is like at the perfect time for people that are feeling positive about it, for it to get votes or thinking about it. But it's like the initial experience for Diablo 4 was like 86/91 Metacritic. So it's like people really like Diablo. It's just that season 1 lost people. So, and that was like 2 months after. So
this next one, I think we're gonna probably agree on who's winning this one. By the way,
yeah, it's Company of Heroes 3, right?
best Sim
strategy game. Yeah,
strategy game. You're saying Company of Heroes 3. I was thinking Pigment was gonna get that with a bullet.
That's an interesting, because like I know Pikmin 4 is like nominated for somewhere else. I can see Pikmin be like, let's give it to him, even though it's not really a sim strategy game in the traditional sense like the other ones. And I know a lot of people are incensed by this category because there are a bunch of other sim games that are so listed that were not even here, and people were also incensed that City Skylines 2 was nominated here, a game that launched broken.
I like City Skylines, but this one was rough.
Yeah, it was rough seeing it. Exactly. So it was like, and it was funny, like the developer ahead of launch, even though they delayed the console versions, they ahead of launch were like, hey, just so you know, City Skylines is going to launch with a lot of frame rate issues. Yes, we're sorry about that, but we're launching. So the fact that they put it here, it's clear this is another one where, based on the committees that they had, they're like, let's try to put it. What came out? Oh yeah, let's put it in without much thought. And because of that confusion, I can see Pikmin 4 being the one that wins it here based on how voting committees go.
Even City Skylines might be the most demanding game that I played on PC this year.
Which is nuts.
Why? Is stupidly demanding, by the way.
And what do you have for your PC? Is it like what are your specs? Are you at a 4090 at least?
Yeah, well, way above that, but yeah, it's crazy. Hold on, I'll have to pull up my specs, but
yeah, I want to hear your specs, because it's like, that's so funny. If you are like at 49, if you have a 4090 RTX or something like that, it's like, if it's still demanding much, it's like, what an unoptimized piece of crap. if you require that much.
What's the next category though?
So it's best sports and racing game. It's like I feel like the only true answer here would be Forza Motorsport, like at least for like legit, because I'm like, EA Sports Football Club 24. It's more FIFA. FIFA hasn't been good in like forever. I don't know why this is only here, because of all the sports games, including NBA and even Madden, it is not as egregious in some places. At least it's a little bit more solid. We had that conversation with NBA that it's like the core is still good, but everything around it is so rotten, and it's the first time it's not there in this pocket.
I think this is the first category to where I'm like, I think what I would probably consider the game of the year for that category isn't even on the list, because I think it's UFC this year, because I'm like, UFC is spectacular this year.
Yeah, like, that one came in super early, right? Was it like in March?
No, like it came out like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
Oh, it's a recent one.
Yeah. I want to say 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Let me see. UFC 5.
Yeah. So is it UFC 5?
Yeah, UFC 5 is October 24th.
Oh, okay. Yeah, makes sense. And
this game is, it's the best in its genre right now. I would probably put it the best in its genre. And then, like, IGN gave it a 9 out of 10, man.
Yeah.
A 9 out of 10 for a sports game.
Yes, and even though it has a 78 on Metacritic, and makes me wonder what's EA Sports FC Metacritic, just for shits and giggles.
Yeah.
24 Meta career. That's a LMFAO 75. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, so I'm like, it's not.
People don't think now we're seeing is like so many people just nominate stuff because it fits the pocket, but they don't really think about it. It's like this is why Jeff gotta like take more care of how like these nominations happen because
I don't think I don't think not a lot of people play UFC enough to where like I don't think like enough people played it enough to where like it would be considered in that category because I'm like honestly I think WWE is also better than
that came out earlier. I remember
3 or 4 of these. Yeah,
and that came out very early in the year, and people loved that one. I do remember that they had a really good WWE game. So yeah. Again, this is just them being like, okay, like because it's best sports and racing game. Let's look at the list. Okay, Forza came out, Hot Wheels came out, The Crew came out. These are like reason. I bet they went to Google racing games. Those were the first series. Like let's put these, and then like with sports, okay, let's put these also because I know F123 recently came out. It's like Jeff, if you want like people to really take this more seriously, consider separate these categories more, and maybe do like a small panel that have them volunteer that you know that they'll know their stuff, that they'll be able to like properly vet these things because this is. I feel this one will because of the mix of this. Forza Motorsport could be the one to win. Kind of like an idea.
Win.
Yes, only in the. Yeah, let's give one to Microsoft. This feels like an easy one for them. Let's give it that. I bet that was the thought process. It's like, yes, they gotta. Game Overs is turning 10 next year. We gotta like take more care of these. So, best family game. I feel this one is a lock between Mario and Pikmin. So this is like.
I think Mario's got this in the bag, man.
Yeah, this one if it doesn't win like anything else from its nominees, I feel Wonder is gonna give this one the bag. I'm gonna go controversial and say Pikmin 4 just for like be like okay I'm gonna be the outlier because
the contrarian.
The contrarian in this one for fun. So you say Wonder, I say Pikmin. Okay. We've been pretty kind of like even like I think the only one we diverged was the Hades one and
for sure
and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but we've been like pretty better the same in this one. So.
Next up, best fighting game. That's God of Rock, Mortal Kombat 1, Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2, Pocket Bravery, and Street Fighter 6.
I feel Street Fighter 6 should be the one that wins this one.
With a bullet.
I fear Mortal Kombat 1 will get it if it somehow sways in enough votes, depending on how people approach it. Because Mortal Kombat is bigger. Like, it's a bigger series than Street Fighter 6, but Street Fighter 6 is like... When it comes to like pure raw combat mechanics, is like that is the fighting game. So it's like I would say I'll also try to be contrarian in this one. I feel like Mortal Kombat 1 could like eke it out for some reason because it has like it has its single player component can be like one that attracts more people. I say at least I play this, and then people will play the single player of Street Fighter 6 and be like, what is this garbage? It's that could be like a scenario, but. Realistically, Street Fighter 6 should be the one that wins this one. I'll say for fun, Mortal Kombat 1 because it's basically between those two. Your Street Fighter 6 and Mortal Kombat. Best RPG. Are we even
entertained? Man.
Yeah. It's like, are we even entertained in this conversation? I feel bad for Lies of P being here. It doesn't deserve to be like Final Fantasy 16 and Lies of P do not deserve to be in this category, like at all. And they deserve to be over in action. And Baldur's Gate 3 is like, is there any other RPG this year that like took the world by storm and like impressed people with its depth, with its
I would argue, and this is the I think like this is where AAA kind of like where games get the AAA bump versus like indies, even though the indies might be like might be more true to the genre. I think Cassette Beast probably should have taken one of those spots.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's a Pokemon like game that was really popular back in like June and July, that type of.
And
thing.
Also, I tried it recently. Also, I'm also gonna put a stick in the finger. Octopath Traveler 2 needed to be here also.
Thank you. I was gonna bring that up. Really, gonna bring that up as well. I'm like,
what a phenomenal term. Especially me. I bought when it was on sale recently, and when I was on my Pixel Remaster binge, and I was like, I kind of feel on the issue of doing like another like a. Turn-based Square Enix style RPG, and I was like, I'm gonna buy that and try it. It's like, how is that not here? That's like a big team of people not playing it, and here people thinking of not thinking the RPG nature of voting this like through. It's like, I love Final Fantasy 16 and it does not belong here. It does not. It absolutely does not belong here.
No, sure not.
Yeah, not even the Lies of P. Like, Souls likes don't belong in RPGs. That's more action. Like, Souls like are more in the action. Even though there's stats and all that, it's like, I don't feel it belongs there when there's clear RPGs that should have been here, especially because they were in the vein of Sea of Stars.
Mm-hmm.
And I would hate to think.
Right with you.
Yeah. So I think in this one, because of how weird the split is, it's like Baldur's Gate 3 is going to win this. And I'd be shocked if anything else like wins this. I can even imagine weird fuckery. Like weird fuckery that the voting gives it to Starfield for any goddamn reason. Like that would be so funny. Like just in that, let's, like they like throwing bones just because. Like that's like the only way, and that would be a pity because like it's not even close. Like seeing me, I don't like much of Baldur's Gate 3 because I'm not into that CRPG. Even just the little bit that I saw, I was like, I understood why you played Baldur's Gate 3 in August and then jumped to Starfield in September. You felt the downgrade.
Rough.
I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad that I went up because I was like, oh yeah, I'm glad I didn't see Baldur's Gate 3 initially because holy crap, like you feel the downgrade on that one. And even I would say Starfield doesn't even belong here. Like it's just not a game that's in this kind of year that stands out. It just doesn't.
I think what a lot of people have issues with is the RPG elements of Starfield, by the way. It's like, to me, I mentioned like the leveling system. I think it is atrociously bad, though. Like the fact that you have to like raise up your levels to get like additional crewmates as time goes on, but then like you also have to raise up your leadership quality, which is the exact same thing. Or like here's the stealth. Here's like a stealth tree, and like a lot
the
of
stealth
things
tree was dumb,
terrible.
Yeah,
absolutely terrible. But I'm like, there's so many things, fitness and weightlifting being like
separate things,
the exact same. Like it should. They should interlap as far as like one equals another. If you're fit, I mean, if you're a weightlifter, you're a fit person, right?
Yeah. It was just like how can I say this? It was like a skill. It was a skill tree nightmare that was just like all separate to give an illusion of depth that just like compartmentalized enough things that just made the actual role playing feel more annoying than it should. And especially making so many levels, especially the Ryujin quest of that game. So reliant of you having invested a little bit of that stealth skill tree, otherwise the quest just wouldn't work, or it would be just an absolute pain. Was like so painful. It's like, yeah. By the way, people, Starfield is my biggest disappointment of the year because it was my most anticipated game of the fall. Just from that, I think it had good elements, but gosh, it's like there were so many better games this year. So I hope Baldur's Gate 3 wins this with a bullet because there's like no better answer. Like it's Starfield,
either Baldur's Gate or Sea of Stars, because I think that'd be huge for the Sea of Stars team.
Yeah, Sea of Stars I would love for them just for like the cash, because Baldur's Gate 3 has so many nominations there everywhere else. I feel like it could afford not being like a sweep. To me personally, like and they could, and a game like Sea of Stars could get there because I know Sea of Stars are one of the best turn-based pixel RPGs that have been there. So that would be the two that I would love. Like let's just say Baldur's Gate 3. It's both our votes
sure.
for that one. Yeah. Best action adventure game. For the best action adventure game combining combat with traversal and puzzle solving.
Oh, we're gonna be on different sides of the fence here.
Yeah, this is interesting because I'm like, they're so different. They're absolutely so different. Like every game here. I feel the game that may be winning this, because I don't think it will win anything else. They're gonna pick Zelda. They're absolutely gonna pick Zelda because I think I have an idea. I think you're gonna say Spider-Man, right?
I prefer Spider-Man vastly over Zelda, but yeah.
Yeah, but kind of like just thinking about how they would be voting with this. It's like there's just something weird. This has happened to Insomniac very often. Every time that they're nominated, something else always wins over them. And obviously, like, and Spider-Man, out of like all these 6 games that were nominated, was technically quote unquote the weakest, just on review sentiment of like the voting panels and all that, from what you understand. Yeah. That to me, like, Spider-Man 2 plays significantly, but it's more fun to play than something like Zelda. Zelda just has so much outside its play with its design that I feel like people are gonna correlate that to vote for Zelda, especially because I don't think Zelda is like. It's not the runaway winner that it seemed like it was gonna be based on how everyone was talking about it back in May. Even that I reviewed it and gave it a 10. It's still one of my favorite things that I played this year. It's just not quite up high up there for me anymore. But I feel like just based on voting, this feels like the one that Zelda wins. Like if it needs like a win, based on like where sentiment has gone. So I would vote Zelda for this.
Okay.
Even though
I can see Zelda getting it. It's just I can see Alan Wake getting this.
Yeah,
I can see.
I would say Alan Wake 2 is like my favorite of all these 6 games that are listed here on that. And also Alan Wake 2 is like in that Last of Us pocket, kind of like in that same vein. So people could like put it that way, even though it's more survival horror. There's just no survival horror separate category this year. So
make one and get rid of these esports ones and make one.
Right?
This year has a stupid amount of survival horror like representations.
Yeah, it's nuts, right? That why is action, adventure, and RPG the only ones that they like separating and racing? Why not survival horror? It's such a mainstay now. And I would believe before where survival horror was barely touched upon. Now it's like one of the most how can I say this? Like it's one of the most prolific genres now. It's like so many, even like not action horror games like Resident Evil 4, Dead Space, but it feels like there's so much in that pocket that it would justify its like placement. So
every year's got like several now. Every year, and indie games are throwing out tons. I wouldn't believe how many like emails I get about a survival horror game to where I'm like, I can't say yes to this. It's not my genre. You know, I'm scared. I'm a chicken.
Yeah. Which is so sad because there's been so many. Like I tell you, Alan Wake 2 is such a special game. It's about it is really like of all the survival, all the scare ones, this would be the one that would give you a heart attack. I tell you because it's very startling and like how
I got up to the TV station Alan Wake, by the way.
Oh, okay. You the first one or this one?
The Alan Wake 2.
Awesome. Okay. So have you been able to like tolerate like the cuts of the screaming and there's parts that do that even worse later in that game. It's like it becomes startling, like how much like scary like quick cuts of like screaming like it starts happening. It's like it's such a very effective survival horror game. It's just that I wish it had its own category where it would win it with a bullet, not in best action adventure game where it has nothing, and I repeat, nothing in common with Spider-Man or Jedi Survivor Zelda. It's like it doesn't belong there.
I'm gonna fall off of Alan Wake, just not because it's not bad, not because it's bad or anything, just because
I know for you it's too scary.
Yeah,
yeah, I believe it. So now the best action game, to me, my vote for this is Armored Core 6: Fires of Rubicon. I would hope this would win it because it's like the only thing from software that has become like a darling for these awards is like nominated for this. And out of all these games, the one that I like the most personally, like I love, this is Paul's favorite game this year, Armored Core 6. That was like his biggest surprise, at least so far. I don't know if that's still like his game. It's gonna be his game of the year, but he really was very impressed with this, and I was very impressed getting to it after I was done with many games. And it's just like the vibe, the intensity, like it's just the mech combat is so perfect. But I feel this, especially because this other game has other 5 nominations. Hi-Fi Rush. This could be a Hi-Fi Rush.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. I think if there was a third place, I think it would be Armored Core, by the way, because I think it would be.
Yeah.
I think Ghost Runner 2 lately has been getting tons of good reviews.
Yeah. Dead Island 2 to me is the one that I'm like, why is this here? Like, why the hell is that? Yeah, why the hell is Dead Island 2 here? It's like this almost feels like, you know what best action game the category feels like to me this year? Be like, oh crap, there's these other games that we haven't nominated anywhere else. Let's put them all here. And I think
Remnant 2 is better, like a better representation of that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And Remnant 2 is really good. Like Remnant 2 was like a surprise sleeper hit of this summer. It recently was announced that it sold 2 million copies, so that's more than the first one sold also. So
honestly, this is a controversial statement, but like as opposed to putting Dead Island 2 here, I'd actually put Immortals of Avian in here.
I like Immortals of Avian a lot.
I really enjoy it, by the way.
It's like, ironically, that's probably the best FPS that came out this year. Even though it's not really, it's like because the FPS category this year was pitiful. In the best year of games, FPS fans suffered a lot. So many bad ones. That's
rough.
Avian deserved to be here, and in fact, like this would have been one, like this had 6 slots compared like with other ones. I would say yes, swap Avium and Final Fantasy 16 deserve to be here also instead of over in the RPG category. So in this one, Hi-Fi Rush could be one of the wins, especially with how many nominations it got, despite it not being like in the final 6. I would hope Armored Core 6. I'll vote Armored Core 6 in this one. Just say Hi-Fi Rush.
Okay. I got Hi-Fi Rush.
Awesome. Then Innovation and Accessibility. That's Diablo 4, Forza Motorsport, Hi-Fi Rush, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Mortal Kombat 1, and Street Fighter 6. So I would say like in accessibility, Street Fighter 6 is an interesting one.
Amazing. I hear about
it
being
so I think that would be the one that wins it, because Spider-Man 2 has great accessibility, but it doesn't feel even as remotely robust as even something like Ragnarok or Last of Us and all that. Even though Insomnia has always been good, but it's not that notable. And I feel like what Street Fighter 6 did to make their fighting accessible is more impressive. So I would vote Street Fighter 6 for this one.
Yeah, I'm also like just being real here. I'm not equipped to say what's more accessible than something else.
Yeah.
Since
I played a lot of Diablo 4, and I feel Diablo 4 doesn't really have much in accessibility other than at least from what I saw, like initially just like the text to chat or like reader text and all that, or like fonts and all that. I'm like, it's that, but I don't feel it's like an innovation in accessibility. I feel like Street Fighter 6 for like a genre that is so defined by its competitiveness, how they like took put so much thought into making it accessible. I feel that could be a pocket for Street Fighter 6. So I'm gonna put my vote for that one. Do you remember what accessibility there was for Hi-Fi Rush? I'm trying to remember. I was like, was there any there?
I don't, but this is a prime example of like why I think there should be a committee, and then why I think there should be like vast different representations on that community. And because I think like this is an example of like, I think like the
Google what games have accessibility options. Google, okay, put them in.
Yeah,
that's how this feels
I think
like.
This is where experts like Steve Saylor, would be like really nice to have on that community, to where they can speak personally on this is why this game is super accessible versus 20 other ones. I think like having people who have disabilities or have challenges playing games on those type of communities would be an amazing
and this just
thing.
goes to show why those committees should be more worthy than just saying outlets should be the 120 people that nominate, because it's like you're putting the onus on people that really don't understand this. This is not like the movie industry that is easier to like compartmentalize what it's an action movie, what is a comedy, and all that. Games are more complex, that I feel deserve more in-depth like discussion of like what should be the things that is nominated. Like and they really need to do that, because it's like we're seeing more chinks in the armor with the nomination process this year than most. Have you noticed? Even more than usual, especially for a year like this. So I would say Street Fighter 6 is the only one that to me does something notable. Like the accessibility of Spider-Man 2 is the exact same as the first one, so that to me is not special, or it was special back then, because that helped proliferate that game into like being so one of the most beatable games on the PS4. But that was in 2018. I don't feel the new one does anything remotely. The only thing they added was parry window, and even then there was like dodging windows in the other one. So it's like Street Fighter 6 I would say would be my vote, because I can't think of what the other ones do. Like that would be like innovation and accessibility. So Steve, I hope like they recognize you, they put more emphasis on you next time. So best VR AR game. So Gran Turismo 7, Humanity, Horizon Call of the Mountain, Resident Evil Village, and Synapse. I would hope that based on like understanding that people would like to reward something new, it's between Humanity and Synapse. And I've heard really good things about Synapse for people that have played VR. It's like that's like the shooter. So
I don't even think it's a question is Humanity's gonna win this.
Because of the treacherous guys, right?
I was just like, I don't even think this is like I think this is their category to be like snubbed over.
What's so weird is that I don't think of Humanity much as a VR game, you know what I mean? Because you can play Humanity without VR.
Yeah,
it's like more VR adjacent. So Synapse is the only one out of all of the, and I feel Synapse and Horizon and Call of the Mountain are like VR, it's strictly VR games. The thing is that I have heard many people say that Horizon Call of the Mountain is not good. I've heard it many times. Like people have said it's actually pretty disappointing. So
Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to be like a high budget AAA VR game too. So I'm like, and it doesn't quite nail that.
Yeah, if people compare it to Link's crossbow training from the Wii, it's like a super pretty Link's crossbow training. That's kind of like weird. And I know that people have made the joke that it will make people hate the idea of climbing because you have to do a lot of like climbing yourself.
Yeah.
So I feel this one, Horizon Call of the Mountain, got in there because it's like a big name, not because it was like particularly well received. I know Synapse was well received. I feel like Humanity, because of the pedigree behind it, like that could get its nod. It's just that to me, I don't think of it as a VR only thing. If for some reason people really vote just on what is a VR only experience that's actually good, I feel like yeah, it could go to Synapse. I'll vote Synapse for this one, just on that, yeah. But you just do the Humanity.
Yeah, I'm Humanity for sure.
Yeah. Best community support. So Baldur's Gate 3, Cyberpunk 2077, Phantom Liberty, Destiny 2, Final Fantasy 14, and No Man's Sky. Another example of not having your finger on the pulse. Have you been hearing everything that's been happening with Destiny 2? The recent layoffs and all.
I always hear there's controversy there. Like always hear there's controversy with this.
But what's so funny is that the community team got laid off recently. Despite them trying
all of them?
Yes, like the majority of them.
That's rough.
And they got nominated for this. Was like, wow. It's like, wow. It's like, that's rough.
That's insensitive too.
Yes.
It's rough.
Yes. And it just imagine if somehow won, they would be like pouring salt to the wound. That all the people. Yeah. So Final Fantasy 14 has always had like one of the greatest community supports that I always hear. It's like they have a very healthy community. It's rare for you to hear controversies happening in that game, or like they need to be like putting out fires. So I don't know like what particularly has happened with Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty from a community support perspective that justifies it here. I also feel like I heard enough about the Baldur's Gate 3 community that has been like very transparent from like moving on from its early access into this thing and telling people about patches and all that. I feel like not understanding what's been like, I bet a lot of people are kind of like in our boat. It's like what's particular that has happened with these 5 games from a community support this year. I feel people are gonna default to Baldur's Gate 3 in this one.
I'm also I was just about to say I'm also like omitting that I'm like admitting I'm not an expert in any of these because the community aspect hasn't really affected me at all, and I'm a single player gamer, so I'm like I have no dog in this fight. I also don't have any guesses. Yeah,
so I'll guess Baldur's Gate 3. Just kind of like I see a lot of people gonna default to that one.
Yeah,
so.
For sure.
Best mobile game. Again, people must have probably seen what's popular right now because it's like
dog in this fight. Don't even know any mobile games.
Yes, I played Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis because I had heard that this is basically the remake everyone wanted the remake to be. Kind of like it's the same game, the same RPG, just like with better graphics, and it's kind of like that slapped into a gacha game. So it's like, it's basically that. I don't know why this is here because the gacha side of things ruins that game. But it's like it has great production value. It's like at least the music's cool. But Honkai Star Rail, I can see this winning because Keeley has a good relationship with Level of Infinite and like that China pocket. It's like because I don't know anything about Monster Hunter now. A Hello Kitty game, like what the fuck?
Hey man, it must have been good to get here, I guess.
Yeah. Is it though?
Well, I have no idea. I don't know. They might be in a weak year for mobile games. I have no idea.
Oh yes. So I'll just go and say Honkai Star Rail. Just just cause because it has like a more understandable name. But again, it's like I bet they're just listed games. So this is definitely this is definitely more your boat because I know you played a bunch of these and you have like strong opinions for these. The best debut indie game. So Cocoon, Dredge, Pizza Tower, Venba, and Viewfinder. Like the only one that I really haven't heard much is Venba.
Venba's good. It's an acquired taste though, I will say.
Yes. Like Cocoon, obviously. That was like a surprise hit late this year. Dredge was a surprise early, especially in Pizza Tower in platformers. Well, I know you sung the praises of that one.
Pizza Tower is really good. Dredge is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
Pizza and Viewfinder, Viewfinder was interesting, like kind of like that. The whole like you take pictures to like build a level and all that in angles up.
It's a really good puzzle game as well. I am,
Mm.
this is a category that's hard. I'm talking
Yeah.
about hard because it is. I think that like all those can make a case. Representation wise, it's no question that Vimba has that representation marker
Mm.
unlocked. Pizza Tower is probably the most unique premise here because it's
Mm.
like Wario meets Mario
Uh-huh.
meets but like every level is different. You think Wonder is different? It's like
Uh,
every level is a wonder plant, like a wonder plant
it's basically Pizza Tower.
in
The
Pizza
Wonder
Tower.
Plants, yeah.
Yeah, every level is like that, every single level, and then like you get to the end of the level and like you get to every end of the level and you thinking like, okay, I did pretty well. Now then it gives you the challenge of like, hey, you have to speed run back to the beginning of the level in order to actually beat the level, and
Hmm.
you can't just speed run and there's a timer there. There's like there's something always chasing after you, a la Crash Bandicoot style, but in a
Uh-huh.
2D way, that you have to make it through all these like puzzle elements that you set in place and unpuzzleize them and make it through. I've never seen anything like that. I think Pizza Tower is probably one of the best games I've played this year, but I will probably say Dredge is probably gonna win this year.
Yeah, I feel it's between Dredge and Cocoon.
I
Cocoon
think Cocoon's
because
a good one too.
yeah, Cocoon specifically because of the recency bias. That
Mm-hmm.
that especially because Dredge came out super early this year, so it's definitely a toss up between those two. I would go Cocoon. You go Dredge.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
would love
so
to do that. And
mhm.
Dredge also has DLC that came out today, so like
That will help
added
them.
DLC
That
expansion.
yeah, yeah. That will help. That would help it then to bring it back again to like the forefront in people's minds. So and Pizza Tower, unfortunately, is just on Steam still, from what I saw. Like it still doesn't have like a console release. So
No, I think in 2024 is when they'll probably get that over. I do think it did well enough that they're probably pushing for a console release though.
they gotta, because that would. I bet you if Pizza Tower had a console release this year, more people would have played it also. So or
Yeah,
no,
for sure.
even if it was just on Switch, kind of like what Dave the Diver did,
Hmm.
because at least that one came out on Switch. So
It's so good. Dave the Dower's so damn good too.
yeah. And speaking of, now moving over to best indie game, which is between Cocoon, Dave the Diver, Dredge, Sea of Stars, and Viewfinder. I feel Dave the Diver, despite like all the controversies with Nexon publishing and all that, I feel that's the one that gets it. Uh,
Ooh.
do you think? Or do you feel Dredge? Here's what's funny, because there's the debuted indie game and then there's indie game, and there's like overlap with two of these. I
Mhm.
can see like one. Let's give it to Dredge here, and then let's give it to this other one over here. So
The indie category is one that I think could benefit also from like an
more splits.
expanded expanded split and such like that, because I'm like if there's not going to be a AAA horror game that's like really going to take the world by storm every single year, and there's a lot of those, like I said earlier. There's also like the best family game, best puzzle platformer, all those kinds of different things, like best puzzle game. I think if we did like a best puzzle game category, indie game would probably take that like 9 times out of 10. But
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, but going back to the point though, Sea of Stars.
So
I
you're
think
gonna
it's
give it
gonna
to Sea of
get
Stars?
this.
Okay.
I think the Game Pass thing is really gonna help that to
Yeah,
where
and the
like
PS Plus. Remember, this is like a
PS Plus,
simultaneous review, so people could play it. Like,
yeah.
so, yeah, I feel it's definitely between Sea of Stars and Dave the Diver, especially because this is the only place where Dave the Diver is in, and that definitely was like a favorite for the people that played it, and obviously enough for them to put it here in the list.
Mhm.
So, yeah, you go Sea of Stars, I'll go Dave the Diver.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah, so best ongoing game. So Apex Legends, Cyberpunk 2077, Final Fantasy 14, Fortnite, and Genshin Impact. Again, this just feels like, let's just put games that are always here, but let's just add Cyberpunk 2077 here because we gotta put it somewhere so we could try to award it something, even though I tell you, like, Cyberpunk 2077 is not a live service like these other 4 games. It was literally just, it got an expansion and obviously patches for that game to run better, but it's not like meant to be an ongoing game. So
No. But I mean, they re-changed everything about that
oh
game.
yeah,
Like,
it's like
everything.
That's what's so funny. It's like that's why it gets muddled, because it's like the way it changed everything for 2.0 heading into Phantom Liberty is similar to what you see in a live service game. It's just it's not one, like as you would traditionally know it. I feel because of the extent of the changes, even though it doesn't really belong here, I feel Cyberpunk's gonna win it.
I hope so. I would probably take out Genshin Impact, by the way, and put in Vampire Survivor. Because I think like Vampire Survivor got a huge moment in the sun this year.
With the 4-player co-op, right?
The co-op, the multiplayer, and the co-op element of it, and the fact that like it also got put on like the Netflix things. Like
it got to Switch also. It's only missing a PlayStation release now, so it's like it proliferated more.
Yeah, so, but maybe you disagree because like I have no idea about Genshin Impact. I just haven't heard very much of it this year.
That's also funny. I haven't heard much of Apex from Fortnite and Genshin Impact either. And even Final Fantasy 14, has not been a release year for them. The only thing that they announced is the expansion for next year that's going to be very One Piece themed. But it's like a pirate treasure thing. Is that? But yeah, so it was like that's like the only thing. But none of these games had anything notable, like really notable. So because of that, I feel Cyberpunk is gonna win this thing, even though it does not make sense based on like. That's
the only one I give
exactly. So yeah, I would say that because again, keeping in the theme that the voters, the panel of those on this thing don't give a rat ass about it, like why they put these games here. They're gonna give it to Cyberpunk. So I'll vote Cyberpunk for this one, that one. Games for Impact, for a thought-provoking game with pro-social meaning or message. I know there was this game about the Holocaust that didn't make it here. That would have been like a really interesting one.
It's tough. This is a tough category though, man.
By the way, Goodbye Volcano High not wasn't that game very good either? So it was like
I mean, it's a mixed bag. I think I think it averages around that 7 to 6 out of 10 range. So it's not like it's like super good, but it's not like it's super bad either, though.
Yeah.
It's just a good game.
Yeah. Tchia, I didn't like it much. I found it very boring. I don't know like what Tchia did for like what pro-social message it put other than representing like Hawaiian style, kind of like, that island style group of people, Pacific Islanders. Other than that, so do any of these other games, like at least when you think about like for a pro-social message, like stand out more to you from this? Because I have no like vote in this. I have no vote in this race.
Goodbye Volcano High was very good about representation as far as
Scalies.
People from Scalies from all Scalies, that's funny, but yeah, all different sort of like sexualities and all that kind of things as well. And from a teenage perspective, it did very well with that. I think I would probably say a season for the Unbound, a space for the Unbound though is like, oh, so good. The writing is so good. The representation of it is so good. The fact, the culture that they're trying to depict is one that I don't see in video games very often. I think that wins it with I don't want to say with a bullet, but I really kind of like see that as a.
I see the art style, and just on the art style alone, I think I'll put my hat on this one, even if I don't know much.
For the Unbound might be one of the best, and I've played narrative games like basically like it's
that's your beat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is one of the best narratives of this year. It is also one of the best pixel art that I've seen this year. One of them at least, because David the Diver is phenomenal as well. But yeah, I think that representation aspect of it. Yeah, I could definitely see Space for the Unbound probably winning this one.
Yeah. All right, I'll throw my hat on that just on your recommendation. Hopefully you don't like steer me wrong in this one, but who knows?
I mean, I told you all of them could be like that, except for. But Vimba, I mean, also has the bump of having it's been on Game Pass. It's also like more people have been able to play it because of that. Yeah, Space for the Unbound had a moment though at the beginning of the year, but that was the beginning of the year.
And also, a reminder that apparently I think 50% of the vote is counted from like fans. Obviously, critics put like their final tally, but a fan vote can help like push it up. So Vanba has that experience, that possibility. So
yeah.
Now, best performance. So from all of these, based on seeing the win at the Golden Joystick Award, I feel Ben Starr got this in the bag, especially because
I disagree.
Here's the thing, like, I know Idris Elba's character has been like such a standout also, but there's also kind of like, I can imagine a lot of people being like, do we want to like reward usually an actor from movies for this, or do we want to give the award someone that's more like in the voice acting range that's not usually in the whatchamacallit, Idris Elba is a movie star. Ben Starr isn't. So it's like Ben Starr like represents. It feels like more represents kind of like the pockets similar to Yuri Lowenthal in this one. Like I feel Yuri had like a really good turn with Spider-Man 2. The thing is that me knowing that you haven't seen a lot of Final Fantasy 16 also still is like Ben Starr like you're still to see a bunch of like Ben Starr's best moments still to come from that game.
I think so. I think it's like I don't doubt he's phenomenal in it. I think he's been good so far. I just I'm just looking at this like popularity of what people played this year. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Yuri or Idris.
Ben Starr also has like a big advantage. It's like Ben Starr has been like in the media circle a lot. He's become really good friends. Like such a charismatic like persona for so many people that a lot of people are like so in the back for him that I can see that's how they. I don't see Final Fantasy 16 win like RPG, like best RPG. No, that thing's not gonna. They're not gonna win that easy. So it's like there are two categories that I see. There are two categories that I see. Final Fantasy 16 winning, and that's between the best performance with Ben Starr because of just the industry. I tell you, even a lot when I saw the nominees coming in. And I see so many of like the reviewers and so many of the people that wanted to reward stuff. Like when they saw that Ben Starr got nominated, he was the one that a lot of people were like, "Yes, Ben Starr, thank God you got nominated." So I feel he does have, from the critics side, I feel like he has won enough support that I feel that's the one that they're gonna give it to him. So I'm definitely gonna say Ben Starr for this one. But again, I feel like Yuri and Idris are like the other two that are like strong. Like Melanie Liburd as Saga Anderson, she was good in Alan Wake 2, but I feel like I've seen better like other performances. Even I like Cal Kestis' performance more than I did Melanie Liburd, Saga Anderson, and Jedi Survivor. Even though I love Alan Wake 2, so. Neil Newbon could also be like a surprise because Asterion, I feel it's one that people are not like
really good.
Yeah, and to me, like think about it this way: in the brief time that I played BG3 before I deleted it, it's like because obviously you can pick Asterion, like just in the intro video that you can see of them, I was very like mesmerized by this character, so I was like, that's cool that happened just with the intro video. So
he's good, good in that role.
Yeah. And also, like in the Golden Joystick, remember, Ben Starr wanted there. So there's already, so I feel he has a strong person. I'm gonna go Ben Starr for this one. So
okay, I'll go Idris. Just so they have a famous person there.
Yes, yes, that could also be the one because again, like the intersection of like the movie industry with the Game Awards sometimes can be like really uncomfortable in the Game Awards. Remember Al Pacino last year?
Al Pacino, yeah.
And Chris Judge, like Chris 30 Judge's minutes.
Speech was amazing, though.
Yeah, it just 30 minutes too long.
That speech was good, though. That speech was really good.
Yeah, it was so funny though that Jeff Keighley was like speeding through everything else after that speech. It was so funny. But I think what made it so funny was that he had made it the point the Steam Deck. So it was like a lot of people want Steam Decks thanks to Chris Judge. Yeah. Best audio design, I tell you, it's like it's no contest to me to Alan Wake 2 in the effort from this one. It's like the way it's like sound horrifies you in this game. It's beyond like recognition, especially like it's like so not a lot of that game is defined by its atmosphere, and I feel like Alan Wake 2 is like very defined by like it sounds like when you're playing Alan Wake during the dark place and you hear a lot of wake, and it's like you always feel startled because like the shadow enemies, you never know like which shadow is like just chilling or which was a real enemy. Like it always like unnerves you. It's like there's something about like that game is like, to me, I said it's like that game is a presentational marvel. Like it's mix of any sort of presentation, from its like FMVs to actual cutscenes and the sound design, all of it together. I feel like that could be one that Alan Wake 2 does win, even though Hi-Fi Rush use of music was also very innovative. That could also, that I could see the innovative use of sound in that game with its comment and all that could be why it gives it also best audio design. This piece remakes like audio. It's my thing is that I wasn't too surprised with much of that game because a lot of like what that game did, the remake did in audio, is what the original did in audio. So I feel
I've heard it before.
It's I feel like that the more impressive aspect of Dead Space remake was more its visual lift up more than the audio. So that's why I'm like, And also like Resident Evil 4 remake. I also feel like in audio quality and all that, also RE2 was similar. Village also was similar. So to me, it's not much of a standout. And I feel like Marvel Spider-Man 2, when it comes to audio, I want to hear like
phenomenal
I don't
though, man.
Yeah, but I don't feel it's like much of a standout to me for that game. As great as it is, like I feel like when I think about Spider-Man 2, I don't think about its audio, or I don't think about its score either. So that's why
I do, man, because like the way they switch like to the mouse beat with the traps of the Spider-Man beat.
Yeah, that's not the only thing. Yeah, to me that's cool. To me, that is cool. I feel like the uses of sound in the other games are, except Resident Evil for me, is like a little bit more impactful for those games.
Yeah.
So
and then on Spider-Man 2, every villain has a theme. Like every villain, and like they play them no matter like if there's like a subtle hint towards those villains. Oh, it's so good. But I would probably say that, you know, oddly enough, I think Hi-Fi Rush probably wins this one.
Because, it's between Alan Wake 2 and Hi-Fi Rush for this one. So I'll go Alan Wake, you go Hi-Fi Rush for the competition. Okay. Yeah. So it's between those two. It's something when I think about, like, I feel audio for those games is definitely more defined than the other three. I feel like Spider-Man 2 is more defined more by its like story, performances, and even the gameplay more like than its sound. Audio is still there. It's just like the other games are like elevated by their audio. So, yeah. And then best score in music. So I'll say outright that if Zelda ends up winning this, I'm gonna go burn this thing into the ground. I'll just say this: it has one cool music piece at the very end, which is epic. Other than that, it's like the other 4 games definitely had much more cooler scores. Like in the little that I play of Baldur's Gate 3, it has a really cool score. Like really Alan Wake 2's is like the score interspersed with its gameplay. It's actually really clever, especially when you see that we sing. And obviously Hi-Fi Rush is its score is like interspersed with like how you play that game. That's kind of the whole thing. When it comes to like rousing emotions and all that, I feel that Final Fantasy 16 got this in the back. But I don't that like music doesn't account for taste either. So it's like my vote would be Final Fantasy 16 because it's like it's been my favorite soundtrack of the year. But I feel there's four like outside of Zelda for me. There's like four games here that make their case. Do you feel?
Yeah, man, I'm right there with you. I would probably give this a Final Fantasy 16 because I do think like the people voting for this really do like an orchestral like score. So I think like that. And
I would love, especially here, because I keep saying it's like the only reason why I would have loved Final Fantasy 16 to have been in the 6 at the end, the medley. You know how they mix like the 4 medley is like, how cool would it have been to hear one of those songs like mixing the medley of that instead of fucking Resident Evil 4. But yeah, it's like they really screwed up. They were like the panel that chose those games like robbed us from this. I would hope though, because here's the thing: like this could go between Final Fantasy 16 and Alan Wake 2 for me, because you know how sometimes the Game Awards always has like a mid-show like musical interlude. Last year was the Hosen song from Ragnarok that was like in the credits.
I forgot about that.
Yes, Keighley always does that. I can imagine like the orchestra trying to do the soca and so a bunch of the music from 16 kind of like as a middle like interlude, because it's so cool, it's so epic. And the orchestra, do you remember that Jeff Keighley did like a concert earlier this year, like in an auditorium? So 16 was there, and
it was like in LA, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't. It was at LA, so it was like at an auditorium. It was like so cool. And Final Fantasy 16 was the orchestra that played that music there is the same orchestra that plays at the Game Awards. So they already had that. So they already practiced some of those songs. So I can imagine like they could do that if it wins. The thing is that if you've seen the We Sing section of Alan Wake 2 with like the band or the music, is like, I can imagine like if that wins, they could also do a performance of like the most iconic scene of that game also. And I think a lot of people would love seeing that. So to me, it's like, I would love for FF16 to win this. I see Alan Wake 2 and the relationship that Jeff Keighley has with Sam Lake and Remedy, kind of like leaning something, like even though there's sometimes just association alone, it's like puts in here, like when the Churches band played at the Game Awards in 2019, that's like the band for Death Stranding. Like out of everything,
I wouldn't be surprised if they got Jack Black to sing Peaches or Peach.
God damn it. Yes, I can imagine just being like something wins best score in music, and then they have Jack Black singing Peaches. That would be a travesty. But I would hope, like, to me, out of any, this is so funny. It's like, this is my game of the year moment for me. The best score music for, like, I want FS16 because I want that orchestra to play live because it's such a cool music. It's like that is like the element other than its story that like stands out so much for that music, that game is in its highs, because its highs are like complemented by the songs that happens in that game. Like, just wait until you find more of the icons. Oh man, just wait for that. It's like those moments are worth the slow trudge. So, best art direction, it's between Alan Wake 2, Hi-Fi Rush, Lies of P, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. To me, art direction for this one, it has to go to me, it's between the first three. Alan Wake 2, Hi-Fi Rush, and Lies of P. Like, I feel Alan Wake 2 has great art direction in like a more photorealistic sense. Like, that's a beautiful game. Hi-Fi Rush is like more it's definitely cartoony in a way that in a way that does stand out in that, and so I wouldn't hate if Hi-Fi Rush wins that. The Lies of P art style is very striking also, but also it's very reminiscent of Bloodborne, just prettier. It's like a prettier Bloodborne.
Gothic.
It's I do feel it's between Hi-Fi Rush and Alan Wake 2. What do you think? It's between those two.
I think it's between Alan Wake 2 and Super Mario Brothers Wonder.
Yeah, I can imagine that, because there are some moments of yes, especially during the flower sections where it completely changes its art, so it can be very striking with Mario Wonder. It's like, in case Mario Wonder doesn't win Family Game, I can see, like, you know how they like giving it a one award or something. Yes, I can see art direction can win here. Tears has great art direction, but I feel the Wonder art direction is so much more striking and prettier. Like, I feel it's.
I don't think Tears of the Kingdom is a great looking game, if I'm being honest. I think it's like
from a rough. There's specific moments, like in the macro, it looks great. It's in the in micro, like you see the blandness of some stuff that it's propped up in the macro in the art style. But that's why I say, like, Wonder, just like between those two games from a visual perspective for the Switch, Wonder is the better looking game. So you gonna go Wonder for this one?
I'm actually gonna go Alan Wake 2.
Alan Wake 2? Okay. I'll go Wonder to see us for the competition. So, best narrative.
Shit.
This one's super tough. I haven't experienced it myself. I've heard phenomenal things about the Phantom Liberty story.
It's so good.
Baldur's Gate 3.
It's not even a question.
Stepping aside my biases on how it plays, I understand what it does for narrative. That's sprawling in such a, like, insane way, not attempted by many games. Alan Wake 2's story doesn't have like a conclusive, satisfying ending, because obviously they're gonna continue it. But the way it tells that story is one of the coolest of this year. Final Fantasy 16 stories has, to me, the biggest emotional highs, but in pockets. It's not like an overall story, but it's just like the emotional. It's like that's the one game out of this 5 that made me cry this year, like literally. Yeah. So no, in fact, yeah, it is. Like Spider-Man 2, I like the story a lot. It's just like you can hear it in the spoiler cast. So it is like, to me, it's like I like its third act the best for Spider-Man 2. There's a lot of that story that I'm like that. I was like, it's like, I'm not sure about this Craven stuff and all that, even though there's some cool emotional moments of Spider-Man 2. To me, it's like between like 16 and Marvel Spider-Man 2, 16 like hit me more emotionally, especially with some of the themes later in that story about brotherhood and family. But
oh man, I feel that same way about Spider-Man, about like mentorship, about like grief, about how you're handling your sense of responsibility. I feel like everything you're saying about Final Fantasy 16, I'm like, I get that in Spider-Man as far as like themes and such. But you know, I would probably
that makes more sense for me. 16, I experienced it first before Spider-Man. So Spider-Man was like, when they did it, didn't quite register for me as much. So, but if I like, the thing that did register for me with Spider-Man was their second chances and redemption theme that it's driven home through Harry Osborn and even later. We're not gonna spoil more.
Yeah, for sure.
So I feel the 5 of these are really strong. I feel Baldur's Gate 3 is like an achievement in like sprawling choice-based narrative, and how it's like the experience
that it wins it.
Yeah, because of that ambition, I see it winning, even though all narratives from all of these 5 are like really strong, and I feel Alan Wake 2, the way it tells the story is the coolest out of this 5, but I don't know who wins it here. So for shits and giggles, you go Baldur's Gate 3. I'm gonna go Alan Wake 2 in this one.
Okay.
Best game direction, Baldur's Gate 3. I'm not gonna even entertain the other ones. Like just even though I feel Alan Wake 2 because of the way it tells the story. Again, like how it uses, like Paul and I make the joke is like Alan Wake 2 is one of those weird games that transcends being the game, because it's like it mixes it being a video game, telling stories like it's movies or TV, mixing all of those things together in a way that still makes it feel like a video game. We always feel like for example, like Marvel Spider-Man 2, like as a game, it's like it, like many Sony games, it's like it aspires for cinema, it aspires for the HBO style and all that, but it's like it's aspiring to be what other mediums are, while Alan Wake 2 does that but still feels uniquely a video game in a way that's so cool, especially in that We Sing chapter is like the perfect example of like all of those mediums coming together like that. Zelda and Mario don't belong here. Sorry. When it comes to game direction, like it doesn't for me personally. So I feel that this is between Alan Wake 2 and Baldur's Gate 3 also. So because it's like Baldur's Gate 3 is like it takes mastery to be as sprawling and as varied of a game as that is. To me. So
I'm going Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah. I'll go Alan Wake 2 in this one, just to see, because I feel this is the categories. This are the 2 games that had the most nominations of everything. This feel like the more that, based on like the approaches, one is like an achievement in like in-game storytelling, and Baldur's Gate 3 is an achievement in actual narrative building. So it's like they're both achievements in their own right. So that's why they feel like the big ones. And then obviously Game of the Year, it's gonna be Baldur's Gate 3. If there's gonna be a surprise, I can see Alan Wake 2, based on like it's late between these 2. Actually, I feel like what is the Canelo versus Triple H fight of this year when it comes to like
Triple G?
Triple G, yeah.
Because I like Triple H is WWE. Right?
Okay, yeah. I knew it was Triple G. So it's like, who are like the 2 heavyweights? I feel it's between those 2. Kind of like Alan Wake 2 benefits also a lot from the recency bias.
So wait, you don't consider Zelda to be part
not
of
anymore.
The big 2?
Yeah, not anymore. Yeah, not anymore, because I feel like Zelda, especially the earliest it's come out, and also think about it this way, especially like see where it's been leaning just recently with the Joystick Awards. I feel a lot of critics, especially the ones that are gonna ultimately decide this thing, were more surprised with Baldur's Gate 3 than they were Zelda. I feel Zelda like definitely when it comes to game design and them pushing what is even possible within the hardware, and like even an open world game of like making, like bringing the kind of like I mentioned before, kind of like the malleability of like a Minecraft into like a very polished authored game. It's like something that is like many developers were like, I feel Zelda has more of a shot at winning at DICE. Like I said, like in for developers that vote for each other. I can see that like it has more of a shot there. Baldur's Gate 3 feels like if there's something that I understand, especially for Game of the Year, people love surprise. People are like, I was not expecting this to be as good as it was. I feel that carries a lot of weight. I don't think people were expecting Baldur's Gate 3 to be this like this kind of like almost not runaway, but when we started the year, was Baldur's Gate 3 even in the conversation? No. I would dare say no.
No, they like a dark horse. They like a dark horse, like you're saying. But yeah, it is one of those things to where I'm like, it's weird though, because like it's still like I don't think as many people played Baldur's Gate 3 as Tears of the Kingdom though, and I don't even think it got reviewed as much either. Like I think because there are some people who like, despite how good the how good Baldur's Gate 3 is, they're not gonna play it because of the genre it's in, and that's not a bad thing. It's just it's Zelda appeals to a whole bunch of people that, and also like let's face it, there is an unbiased Nintendo
bias. Yeah.
I'm like, there's people who like, there's nostalgia people and there's Nintendo people, and they combined and they vote hard for the shit they love.
Yeah. So
they do. I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's just it's just a fact of life. It's just one of those things.
and that's how they got that runaway win back in 2017 from many places. Baldur's Gate 3 was only reviewed 40 critics less. It has like 100 something reviews, and it has like a 96. Also next to Zelda's 96.
Mm-hmm.
I know like the Game Awards, at least when they vote, again, kind of like them not really thinking much about like, because again, like they just throw these categories because they care more about their own awards. A lot of these outlets, because they actually put thought into why they choose things for themselves instead of like they're. I know that there is an apprehension of trying to give the same sequel to a game back-to-back games of the year, and if the opportunity arises, they will like to award something else. That I know, like for example, even though for example Rockstar won GTA 5 in 2013, and Red Dead Redemption in 2010. Obviously, two same company but two different franchises. Mm-hmm. Red Dead 2, the better reviewed game that year, didn't win in 2018. That was God of War. Then Ragnarok, despite being the most nominated and winning the most categories throughout last year, who ended up winning at the end, Elden Ring. So I feel there's kind of like an inherent, if they can and if they can justify it, they would rather give it to someone new. And Baldur's Gate 3, when you think of the pocket of the reviews, that is like the only game that scored the same as Zelda. That would be like the one, especially recently winning Critics' Choice over, or was that Alan Wake? No, Alan Wake won the Critics' Choice Award.
I think Alan Wake won that, but you know, like I get what you're saying.
On the Golden Joystick, so.
They do love a surprise there, and I'm right there with you. Like I normally would think that, but like it's just damn. It's hard for me to. It's hard for me to live in a world where I always like I always roll my eyes and say like this is another Zelda, and I'm like, because it's like I see Zelda skate by on so many things to where I'm like, okay, people know it's like. He's a no name character, like he's a voiceless character who has a personality of a sponge, who normally like wins a lot of these awards, because like because I get it, it's more nostalgia and it's more like a couple of gimmicks and he goes away with it, but like it's hard
with
for
game
me
design especially,
and I'm like it's hard for me to like unlearn that bias of like, oh, Zelda's probably going to get this. I'm like, that's why I'm like, I would love it to be Baldur's Gate 3. I think it deserves to be Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 allows you to talk to animals and like, and it allows
I've seen it. Again, I've not even played it, but I've seen the videos. It's insane. I mean, just early on in the thing that I played, I befriended a brain.
Yes.
I had a brain as my mascot. I got killed by Cthulhu. That's why I like, fuck this game. I deleted it. So I killed my brain. So it's like Baldur's Gate 3 is like but think about it, because it's like not many people attempt the choice-based narrative with that many outcomes like they do. So I feel like why Breath of the Wild was like so impressive for so many people. Even me, I've been very clear. I do love Tears of the Kingdom. I didn't love Breath of the Wild. To me, Breath of the Wild is the worst 3D Zelda game. And I feel very confident to say that because Tears of the Kingdom gave me what I wanted more out of a Zelda game, with like some of the innovations that I do respect from the outside. With like Tears of the Kingdom with Breath of the Wild did that, moved away from the Ubisoft style open world game into something more that people feel more appeal, because it's like, no, you are empowered to find your own fun, you define your own fun. That was like that what Breath of the Wild did, and that's why like that won so many Game of the Year awards back in 2017, even though I didn't agree. Like I even prefer Mario Odyssey that year over that game. But with Tears,
like sorry to interrupt, but like okay, so you have you've been listening to several different podcasts and different things like that. I've been listening to a couple as well. It's like people who voted on this, people in the industry that are like, you actually have a vote. Like, how do you feel that they're leaning towards? Because like I think
50-50. That's what's nuts. It's 50-50 Zelda and Baldur's Gate in a way. Like, at least just hearing that, just hearing from them. I'm leaning more Baldur's Gate, seeing the Ultimate Game of the Year award from the Golden Joystick to kind of give a tone of like where so many people are trying to lean more. So,
I don't know what IGN's thinking. Like I don't know like the person.
No, I know IGN for sure. I know IGN for sure. It's like leaning more Baldur's Gate, like for a surprise element.
And I think Kind of Funny's more Zelda.
Yeah. Especially with Blessing and Tim and all that.
Tim, I was just like,
because Yeah, Greg already said that for his game of the year, Spider-Man 2, and I'm like, yeah, that's not happening. Like, there's enough dissent.
It's probably as close to mine too, but like close. I don't necessarily.
To me, it's not even
to
me. To me, it's like in my top 10, but it's not even close for me. It's Spider-Man 2. So but I like Spider-Man 2 a lot. In fact, kind of like what I was gonna say, like there's 2 games that I would have eliminated from this list. It's Resident Evil and Mario. I love Mario. Yeah, I love Mario a lot. I reviewed it very highly. It's like it was a lovely, wonderful experience, but it's still a Mario game. Like at the end of the day, it's like it's not what I accept its wins everywhere else. Like it was nominated, but for like Game of the Year, I would have swapped Resident Evil 4 and Mario for Armored Core 6 and Final Fantasy 16 for me and leave everyone else.
Okay.
So, that would have been my picks. And even then, like I would even pull out Armored Core 6 away and get Hi-Fi Rush in, because here's what's so funny: Hi-Fi Rush got the same amount of nominations as Mario and Zelda. Think about that. It's not even here. And Resident Evil 4 got in, even though it was only nominated twice. It's a travesty.
I'd take off those same. I think I'd take those same 2 off, and I would put in Street Fighter 6, and that's not even my genre. I'm just trying to be objective here.
I'd put in the best review game out of those. Actually,
I'd put in Street Fighter 6, and then I'd probably put in
Sea of Stars.
Probably Sea of Stars, because I think it's based on reviews, based on everything I've heard about it. You know,
and before this year, always a token indie game was always up there.
Yeah.
And here's also the weird thing, and again, the Remedy's technically an indie. That's what's so weird, but no, like I don't consider them that. They're like too high quality to even be in that conversation. Kind of similar to Baldur's Gate. So
so that's why I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, like I don't think RE. I think RE is the definitive. Like this probably shouldn't have been in here.
Not this year. I feel like if RE4 had come out last year when they were wanting for games, kind of like 2019 when they were also wanting for games, that's when I'm like, put them in. Totally put it in. Just not this year.
I'm okay. Hot take here, by the way, before we go to our final predictions for Game of the Year. Is this the last year we see an RE game for the foreseeable future being in a Game of the Year consideration? Because I'm thinking it might be.
It might be, because we don't know when what's next for RE right now. It's like they're kind of quiet in regards to that, because then the next time it would be, it's either a RE5 remake or it's RE9. And I know they announced a couple of weeks ago that they're updating their engine. Actually, kind of what we were talking about that one time. However, you were saying, so it's like this was legit. Like I actually end up agreeing with you. It's like I thought RE engine looked great previous years. This is the first year where they got lapped like severely. So.
I think with Unreal and everything going on with like how many games are starting to look great now, I'm like it's aging like old milk.
Yeah, and here's the thing with Unreal Engine, and Unreal Engine 5 is not a silver bullet solution either. There's been a lot of people that have been using Unreal that are actually like complaining that the engine is actually too demanding. And like for example, there's Lords of the Fallen was an Unreal 5 engine that was busted. The PC requirements for Unreal Engine 5 are also are 4090 and above for like good performance. It's like the look of Unreal Engine games is still like good, but in performance and trying to get like stability, it's like that engine is not quite there. The only place where the RE engine beats so many engines is in performance, in the 60 frames and all that. Is like it's so consistent getting there, but the look of it, even Capcom agrees, it's time for an upgrade. They've been using the same engine since 2017, and hey, why is Capcom? We did that episode. Who are the recent kings in the game development? It's like they could have easily been like, why do we even have to update things? Look, our remake is Game of the Year. Like, just think about it. It's like, but they're being proactive. Look how proactive they are to be like, no, we gotta like. That is a very responsible publisher that understands that even as they're relatively top of the line when it comes to how like that they're able to honestly bamboozle people to convince them to be like, yeah, in such an amazing year, we're gonna give RE4 our slot, one of the six best slots in such a varied year. That they're that proactive is like pretty impressive. To me, it's pretty impressive to their way to respond to some of even the things that were not weaknesses before but now are. Because imagine Go for it.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry to interrupt. I was just gonna say, like, we're now past the beloved REs, right? Now we're getting close to like RE5 was the
Iffy.
redhead stepchild, right?
The hater one was 6. 5 was the what are you doing? Yeah, it's like it's a fun action game, but you're like straying. You're straying. You're just starting to stray from what you need. And then 6 was like 1 through 4. Here's a car. There's the road. With 5, we turn around. The car's like, why do you take that road? And then 6 was diving off the cliff. so it's like 6 took the wrong clothes, but then they kept riding the road, and then 6 just fell off because it took the wrong road. So.
And then they revitalized everything with 7. Gotcha. But
Yeah.
it's like the reason why I ask is because like 7 sort of started this whole revitalization thing with them, but like and that's kind of its marker more so than it is the quality of 7. But like, and its quality is like it's really good quality. But like, but what I'm getting at here is like 8 just came and went. It's not like 8 was like this is everyone stop. We got to play 8.
Yeah, and the weird thing is that 8 wasn't the 6 in 2021. That's what's so funny. It was like it was the 6 finalists. So
yeah, so I'm like 8 kind of came and went, but then like, are people expecting high things from a 9 right now? Like,
and that's the thing. Like 2 is very beloved, especially because it out of RE2 and RE4, RE2 is more impressive because the change from you see the game what it was in PS1 to that one, that was like a completely different game. Yeah, absolutely, completely. And 4 feels like, yes, there's elements of the original that are still there, even though they've changed some stuff, like even like the flow of stuff and even combat and all that. I feel as a remake is technically less impressive, but the underlying game is so fun that a lot of people do make the argument that from a fun factor, RE4 is definitely one of the more fun games to play this year, especially if it's up. But to me, it's like that's still like just the fact that it's still not as impressive. If RE2 had been this year instead of 4, like I think I would have more justified its inclusion here, even though I'm like, I do feel this is a year where you could have like justified not putting RE4 here. Like you could totally, especially be like, I feel you put a remake to fill up a year. Especially if you're like, okay, we got 6, it's like, do we have to fill it with something that feels legit? I feel RE4 would have been that, but I don't feel it fits this year as much as I love that game. But it's still kind of like bottom top 10 for me. So I'm like, yeah, I would put it out, and again, Mario Bros. Wonder. I love Wonder. I would put it out also because it's like, it's just another 2D Mario game. Like, a better execution of 2D Mario that 2D Mario hasn't had in a decade, but it's still 2D Mario. So it's like, that's why I'm like, I would rather reward something else. As much as I love it, as much as I adore sharing that game with my mom and dad, and then seeing the delight in their faces at the ingenuity of the plant levels and all that, it's still a Mario game. So that's why I'm like, yeah, I would put it out. And I would have rather have other games in. And to me personally, it would have either been a mix of the 3, either Hi-Fi Rush, FF16, or Armored Core 6, and then leave everything else. So, and then to me the weird thing is Spider-Man 2. Like, to me personally, like there's many other games that I prefer. Like, in fact, the 2 games that I would swap, RE4 and Mario 4, I prefer them over Spider-Man 2. But Spider-Man 2, it reviewed so well, and I like enough about it that I don't mind it being here. It's just not like the one that I feel the strongest, but I do believe that it deserves to be in that list. So those are my 2 switches. So I would say like the biggest shocker out of all this winning would be Alan Wake 2. But that would also be like the recency and the surprise that, were you expecting Alan Wake 2 to be as beloved as it was? Like,
I had no expectations for Alan Wake one way or another, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, exactly. But think about it this way: it's like, even you knowing that because it was a survival horror game, you were not gonna like play it. Were you expecting the championing this game would have had the one that tied Baldur's Gate with the most awards? Like,
no, I wasn't expecting that. I also think we are also going through like almost like a thirst and a renaissance for survival horror that we. Like the RE kind of birth there. Like survival horror is like in its bag right now, not just in quality, but like the thirst for that genre.
Yeah, and I would even say like Alan Wake 2 takes the RE remake bag and like elevates it. Like, I absolutely adore like what Alan Wake 2 did. It's like, I've never been more unnerved with a game in years. Like, really unnerved. It takes a lot for me to be unnerved. And the funny thing is, they did that without monsters. that is like the strength of like the presentation and the presentation marvel that is that game, to make me that unnerved, and what it does, and like how engrossing it is, and like how it mixes its mediums. So
what's your final prediction?
I would say Baldur's Gate 3 would win based on the recent tilt of what I've heard from some critics. Okay. My dark horse would be Alan Wake 2.
Okay.
Like that's kind of let's use this like this category to kind of like give her first one and then a soft one. Kind of like so. Those are like my two, like Baldur's Gate 3 and then Alan Wake 2, just on the recency of it all and the surprise of everything. So those are like the two. Mm-hmm. What about you?
I think mine is going to be Baldur's Gate 3, and I think Tears of the Kingdom would be.
You're gonna go for Zelda, yeah.
The other one that I wouldn't be surprised if it was one.
Yeah, and I can imagine you potentially getting that if for some reason votes are split. That's kind of like from what I understood, based on what some people have talked behind the scenes of how the Game of the Year thing went on 2019. The vote was so split that Sekiro won by a hair.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It was split by so many that then Sekiro just kind of like snuck through, just because of how split it was. So
that's crazy. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's just a funny. I do know that as loud as Tears of the Kingdom praise was around launch, and you remember because I was also part of that praise. It's like the praise did die quicker than Breath of the Wild, but also because that's the kind of year it was. I think there were more people that were more excited for when Breath of the Wild came out. It was like no one would shut up about it. You remember 2017? It felt like no one would shut up about that damn game. Yeah. I feel people did shut up for Tears in comparison, because this year offered more. And again, it's like when I see that list, I feel like Mario and Resident Evil being there, as much as I love them, doesn't represent the breadth and creativity of this year. Like, even just excluding my picks, including some of your picks, I feel like I do feel they chickened out with the Game of the Year. It's like they saw all this massive list and completely like went, okay, let's just go to Metacritic. Let's just pick the big games and the popular games and put those in the top. That's like the only thing that to me justifies the top 6. And even though it's been funny getting to like savor the tears of the Xbox, let's just say like that we're like in calamity over Starfield not being in the final 6.
I don't think it deserved to be in the final 10, but just 6. But
yes, so exactly, I'm in the same boat, because again, to me, Starfield is my biggest disappointment of the year. I do feel like they deserve to like raise more questions over like the fact that back in 2021, Forza Horizon 5, which did win Game of the Year over at IGN, was nowhere in those 6, and it was the best reviewed game that year. You can really clearly see that in 1 year, Metacritic didn't even matter, and now it did. So it's like there's no consistency. There's like literally no consistency. So
yeah. I will say though, it's like I think it's so ambiguous on what game you would take out to put in if you were replacing those games, because I'm like it's a snub fest this year because the quality is so high, you know.
Yeah, and hey, they did the thing that you didn't want. You didn't want them to do this. That you didn't want them to expand the category, and they didn't do it. Yeah, so that's what happened. So it's like, to me, it's like my biggest regret of that final 6 is just the fact that we're not gonna hear any song from FF16 in the final medley, which is always so cool at the end of that show. And again, to me, it's like, who wins in this category, I don't care as much as I care for DICE and BAFTA, because again, it's like that's people that understand more like what they want, or like have a more academic way to like reward things, because they do actually have a panel instead of like the smorgasbord of experience that is the Game Awards. Like, the Game Awards to me is an E3 showcase and a popularity contest and a spectacle. That's kind of how I see it more, instead of like the definitive say of like who wins it or who not, especially with so many issues we saw of like, how did this get nominated? I feel it was like more sporadic, like the nominations this year. So I only care about the medley. They fucked up with the medley. Because that's the thing, like, I tell you, I love Resident Evil 4. I have no goddamn idea what song they're gonna try to like justify for that medley.
The rest of them, though, I think are really
the rest
good.
do.
Like,
that's what's so funny. It's the only game. FF16 was just there for that, people. But besides the funny, again, it's like, hey, if FF16 reviewed lower than this, so again, they use Metacritic this time. So it's like, I understand it. Again, I love the highs of that game, but I don't consider it the best. So, was that a ghost?
Nah, it was my dog. My dog
Yeah.
basically kicked down the door, and he was like, "You're gonna
Okay.
pay attention to me."
Yes.
But
So all right. So those were basically our picks. So I'm gonna read them real quick just as a reminder. So for best adaptation, we both picked The Last of Us. For most anticipated, did we both pick we both picked FF7, right? Rebirth.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So yeah, we skipped everything for this esports thing until end with best multiplayer. I gave it to Diablo 4. I think you gave it to BG3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, yeah. And then for best sim strategy game, I think you went Pikmin 4. I went Company of Heroes 3. Best sports racing game, we both went for Forza Motorsport. The best family game, I went Pikmin 4. You went Wonder.
Yeah.
For best fighting game, I went MK1 for Chaos, and then you went for Street Fighter 6. Best RPG, I said Baldur's Gate 3. And I think you said Sea of Stars in this one.
Yeah.
Then best action adventure game, I went Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. And then you didn't pick Zelda either for this one, right? Like, I'm trying to remember.
I don't
what
think
you...
so. What else
Yeah.
was the?
It was Alan Wake, Spider-Man, Resident Evil 4, and Jedi Survivor. So I picked Zelda, just on the...
Okay. I picked. I think I'll go Alan Wake on that one.
Okay, yeah. So, and then the best action game, I went Armored Core 6, you went Hi-Fi Rush. If I'm not mistaken.
For sure.
Yeah, so for innovation and accessibility, I went for Street Fighter. I think we both went Street Fighter 6 for this one.
Yeah.
Then best VR AR game, you went Humanity, I went Synapse. Best community support, I picked Baldur's Gate 3. I think you defaulted for that one also.
Yeah, for sure.
In best mobile game, I defaulted on Honkai Star Rail because I had no idea. I think you defaulted for that one.
Yep.
Best debut indie game, you picked Dredge, I picked Cocoon. And then best indie game, you picked Sea of Stars, I picked Dave the Diver. Best ongoing game, I picked Cyberpunk 2077 just because it's clear it's going to be that. I think you picked that one too. This one, we both defaulted Games for Impact for A Space for the Unbound. Best performance, I went Ben Starr, you went Idris Elba.
Yeah.
You went for that one. Best audio design, I went Alan Wake 2, and I think you went Hi-Fi Rush. Yeah. And best score in music, I went Final Fantasy 16. You went for that one too, or
Final Fantasy 16? Yeah, I think.
For best score. Yeah,
I have it.
Yeah. So and then best art direction, you went Hi-Fi Rush, I went Mario Wonder. Best narrative, I picked Baldur's Gate 3. I think we both went for Baldur's Gate 3 for that one. Then best game direction, I went Alan Wake 2 for this one, and then you went Baldur's Gate 3. Oh no, I'm mistaken. For best narrative, you were Baldur's Gate, I went Alan Wake 2. I was picking the Alan Wake side of things for this one. And then for game of the year, we defaulted to 2. Like I say Baldur's Gate 3 with the Dark Horse being Alan Wake 2. And then you say Baldur's Gate 3 with the Dark Horse being Zelda. So if the Dark Horse wins, you get that win. So it's not half points or anything. So we're gonna give us that. We'll see how we do with that one.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting. But then it's like I can't wait for us to do our individual game of the years stuff to talk about many snubs that are not here, or the actual order of things. So
are we doing game of the year like the kind of funny system? Or are we doing a
I would love to do that kind of, everyone has their list and see if we can like come up with like a game of the year stuff, because that would be funny. I would love to have like a fourth person that we give our list to and they make the tabulation, so it's kind of like a surprise. You know what I mean? So, but I would have to find that fourth person.
Yeah. I'm like, are we just putting in are we make a formula and just do it?
Yeah, I've done that with Paul. Like when me and Paul ranked the Assassin's Creed, we did a ranking of the Assassin's Creed games. We both had a separate list, and it was kind of like the bottom. It was 12. It was for 12 points. So it was like spot number 12 only got 1 point, and spot number 1 got 12 points, and depending on where they were, and that's how we did. Like we figured it out on math. So it would be funny to find through math where things land. So we'll definitely talk about that.
We'll talk about it
for like January. So Sebastion, that's all for this week. Read us the game releases for the week of November 19th all the way to December 2nd, because we're taking next week off.
All right, everybody, we got Jurassic Park classic games collection for pretty much everything. If you have a console, no matter what it is, it's coming to it. November 22nd. Dune Spice Wars for Xbox Series X and X, November 28th. Roller Drone, Xbox Series X and X, November 28th. Biomutant for the Switch on November 30th. Gang of Sherwood. Also coming at you November 30th for PS5, Xbox Series X and X, and PC. Hitman Blood Money Reprisal for iOS. I didn't even know that was a thing. November 30th as well. Turok 3 Shadows of Oblivion Remastered for every single thing, every single console you could possibly imagine. November 30th. Batman. Batman. Arkham Trilogy for the Switch, December 1st. Also December 1st, Dragon Quest Monsters, The Dark Prince, and rounding out home base for December the 3rd is Steam World Build for PS5, Xbox Series X and X, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch and PC.
The only one that I'm interested from all these games is Roller Drone, because I know that came out last year on PlayStation, but this one's on Game Pass. So I never bought Roller Drone, so at least I get to try it. I heard good things about Roller Drone.
Are you gonna try it for real?
Oh yeah, I will. That was always like it was a game I was waiting for a good sale, and it never got there. And it was a game that Paul never found interest in, so we never split it either. So I can't wait. My patience was rewarded. I get to just try it on Game Pass.
Okay. I was just surprised because, like, I know you're on a nostalgia kick right now. Yeah. So I'm like, I don't know if you're gonna be playing that way.
That one, because I did want to play it that last year when I was like in the hunger. It felt interesting. At least I'll try it. Whether I play it for many hours, it's gonna depend. So yeah, and then eventually Cyberpunk is gonna like. I feel like the week of Thanksgiving with like more peace and quiet is gonna be more. It's gonna be like the perfect pocket for me to get there. I always associate starting a long game around that time for some reason. I could see that, and I'm very close to like finishing the nostalgia pocket that is Spider-Man right now. So yeah. So Sebastion, that concludes this week's episode. Tell us, where can people find you?
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you can find me at the Single Player Experience Podcast, the premier podcast for single player gamers to find about good single player games to play. You can find me there. That is available on all podcast platforms. You can also find me on, theProNerdReport.com, where you can find latest episodes and also read up on some nits that we like to write. So if you like what you hear, if you like the sound of my voice, you like some of my opinions, you can find me there. Alejandro, where can the people find you?
They can find me at Twitter/X at @A_Durasegovia. They can find me at Threads/Instagram at AlejandroSegovia93. And they can find my written content at both SeasonGaming.com and TheCriticalCorner.com. And they'll probably find our Game of the Year stuff is going to be being written over at Season Gaming, and then over at my at Critical Corner. That's where my top 10 of the year will live. So once we talk about it. So Sebastion, thank you so much for joining me, and everyone, thank you so much for listening to this. We will see you with another official episode 2 weeks from now after Thanksgiving. But hey, if it goes live, you'll be able to hear my thoughts and Sebastian's full spoiler detailed thoughts on Marvel Spider-Man 2 next week that we recorded. That was it 3 hours?
It was.
It was a chunky one, but it was a fun one. It was like I mentioned before in the show, it's the 1 hour and ish minutes that I did with Paul was felt so incomplete for me. I was glad that I was able to be more in depth, because when we talked about it more in depth, I feel I found myself more positive doing it that way that we did it, because I was coming in with a little bit more it was more down on it. Yeah, so but talking
you're a positive person when it comes to games in general, though.
Oh yeah, it's very rare. It only takes a campaign like Modern Warfare 3 for me to take on my claws and destroy something. I'm too nice guy. I'm way too nice of a guy. So yeah. All right, Sebastion, thank you so much, and everyone else, thank you so much for doing it. If you like what you listen, you can give us a like over on YouTube, or give us a subscribe, or leave a review over at your audio service of your choice. And hope you enjoyed the stuffing and the turkey when you get to experience Thanksgiving next week. Hope the weather's good, or not. if it's not, as it's getting cold, hopefully you stay warm and fuzzy as you wait for the grass to come in so you can go touch it again. And
press X to play.
Woohoo! Hasta la vista, baby.